Like clearly broadcasting. It's not something I do a whole lot these days. But I'm back tonight. I'm here, and I'm here with Christine Peace. Some of you may remember her from the golden age of YouTube. Um, it really was the golden age of YouTube.
Yeah.
We are expecting to be joined by Serious Mind, hopefully any minute. And I'm actually really glad that you decided to come on with us tonight because it's like me, you, and Joe. We're like this trio, you know. We are kind of, I don't know, our own
Yeah.
little group.
Yeah. And like,
The three amigos.
and every year, like we obviously keep in touch online, but every year, it doesn't matter how much time we've been apart. If we were to meet up at a rally or something or a convention, it's like never been apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
and part of that is at least
funny.
you're right, and that's like for you and I. It's because obviously because we're birthday twins, but
Oh
um,
yeah. Oh, I forgot. Happy belated birthday.
you too. I said you. I think I said
Oh,
happy
did
birthday
you?
on your Facebook page. I think so.
Oh, I'm
Because I
sorry.
don't forget that. Yeah, yeah.
I forgot. I almost screwed up my birthday for myself, so
Yeah, it's not good. You shouldn't do that.
no,
You
but
only have one of you, so you got to treat you well.
that's true. It's funny because a lot of people might not realize that I'm still a novice, even though I've been online for almost 2 decades now. I'm horrible at technology, but a guy named Jason found me on YouTube and said, "Hey, I want you to join this chat group I'm in," and that's how we first met. It was you, Nero, Magenta, and
Yep.
and Jason, who sadly has passed. Um,
The Coalition of Channel Killers. That was
I
the name. That was the name of that chat group. It
forgot.
was. Yeah, it was for a while. It was the longest running continuous chat on Skype. They went on for years and years and years. Just one continuous conversation, which was fun. It was part of the inspiration for the Breakfast Club channel.
Yeah.
Um, and there was something else. Something else that I actually have control of again. Um, got that funk. Handed the channel back to me, and so I have the channel back. It's mine once again, and I don't remember how to log into it, and I don't know what to do with it. Um, I mean, when in its heyday, that channel was fantastic. There was a lot of good conversation. There was a lot of good discussion.
Yeah.
We unfortunately had one member, because for those of you unfamiliar, I started a channel called The Breakfast Club. It was based on like two different things. The long running continuous conversation on Skype that was called the Coalition of Channel Killers, also known as COCK. Um, and
Who
also was
doesn't love
based,
cock?
and who doesn't love COCK? And it was also based on um, the Breakfast Club. Hang on one second. Hey, Joe.
Hey, it's going.
Here we go.
I would say I don't love cock. I don't even like my own, other than the
I
obvious
was gonna say,
utility.
don't you like your own?
I mean, it has some good functionality. Certainly enjoy the functionality part of it, but I mean,
Well, you've had it
I'm
since
I'm I'm far
birth.
more enamored with the female anatomy. So
That's okay. When I was a little kid, I told my mom I didn't want boobies, and she asked me why, and I said, "Because then I'll never be able to sleep on my tummy."
well,
She said, "When you grow up, you'll change your mind."
I understand though. Having the gut I have, that it does make sleeping on my belly a little difficult.
Well, I'm gonna go no screen for a second. I'll still have my mic on. I'll still be here, but I'm going to do something unfriendly on. You know what I mean?
Enjoy it.
Play trombone.
So it was based on that Skype group, that continuous conversation that went on for damn near a decade. And it was also based on the movie The Breakfast Club, where there was this group of people from different backgrounds and ideologies and nationalities and, everything. And we would
The
talk
whole
about,
strata of
yeah,
humanity.
right. And at least we tried. And we would have this ongoing discussion where every day a different person would post a video, which was responding to the video that came before. And so that was the channel. It was called The Breakfast Club. And I, in a fit of like rage and anger, I rage quit the whole thing. I erased everything and got that funk. For those of you who don't know, it was a mega ultra cool laid YouTuber, Prince lover, and he wanted to take the channel over. He wanted to, resurrect it, and I said, "Sure, fine, go for it." And he had it running for years. Um, he did a fantastic job with it. He made it his own. He ran it for years, and then it kind of died off a bit. And he, about a year ago, I guess, handed it to me, and I've done nothing with it.
Well,
And
you know
sad.
what? Maybe we should get it going again.
I got to figure out how to get back into it. I I got to log in. I forgot. I've changed computers a couple of times since then. Like the computer I'm using now is brand new. I have a brand new laptop that I've got monitor and keyboard and everything hooked up to. I got it so I can play a game. I spent $600. I'm paying it off like in payments through Amazon. It's like a $600 laptop, and I got it so I can play a game that my oldest kid got me for my birthday. Because when I tried to play it on my old computer, it wouldn't play. It just
What game?
City Skies 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like it's not like it's like Sim City. It's like a Sim City game. I was just playing that today. Sim City 3000. I was having a ball with it.
I never play video games unless it's SimCity.
I spent many hours on the various iterations of SimCity.
SimCity 4 Rush Hour was pretty good.
Yeah, it was very good. Well, especially like they really added a lot of features as far as like what you could do with roads, and you could build parking decks and stuff like that, which was really cool, and bus stops and all that. So I had a lot of fun with that.
I'm sorry. I like SimCity, but I like The Sims best because I wanted to decorate and build houses.
Yeah, Peach was a big fan of The Sims. I played that for a while. I kept making them die of silly things, heart attacks because of an alarm clock, kind of a thing. I would make gay couples.
I would cheat. I would make make a family with so many people in it because you get more money, and then I'd kill off everyone except for the character I was going to play. Take all the money from the dead people so I could decorate.
So here's what's great about that. That ties in to our topic tonight.
Woo!
The U.S. government. So apparently there are people who are having to fight for their Social Security benefits because the federal government believes that if you miss a check and you're upset about that, you must be a fraud. Sure, that makes sense. Let's go with that.
It's funny,
I fear for you guys. I fear for my own country, but I fear for you guys more.
How people say, don't attribute to malice what can be accounted for in incompetence. But this administration is an evil combination of both malice and incompetence.
Yes.
Well, just the other day, Trump was being translated for. He had an Italian translator, and he was saying something that along the lines that America had been allies with Italy since Rome began. And you should see the look on the translator's face. There's a photo
of the translator's face. Yeah, there's a meme going around of it. And yeah, she was in shock. But like what he actually said isn't really much better, but it's different. What he actually said was that Italy and the US have a shared culture and heritage that dates back to the ancient Romans. And while we inherited and borrowed aspects of governance and society and all that from the Greeks and the Romans, we obviously don't have a shared culture because they were gone before we were a country.
Yeah.
I actually got into a back and forth with somebody on Gay Family Values Facebook page today because they were defending that statement, saying that it's true because we inherited so much from the Romans. And it's like, yeah, but that's different. That's not what he said. If he said we inherited things, fine.
But then every country can claim that then. I mean,
Right.
it means
Yeah,
nothing.
pretty much.
I mean,
Pretty
so
much.
does Canada.
Any republic.
So does England.
Any republic.
That's right.
Yeah.
And pretty much it's true of all of Europe and parts of the Middle East and even parts of East Asia and
North Africa.
But well, I'm not surprised though, because this is the same guy who talked about the storming the airports during the Revolutionary War. So, I mean, this man is monumentally stupid.
And he has stupid people working for him. I don't know what the woman's official title is, but during the press conferences, she's behind that podium. I'm not American, so I don't need to know all your fucking titles, people, before you freak out. I've got my own country. But what is she?
Press secretary.
Okay, press secretary.
Secretary. Yeah.
When one of the, I guess, people invited from the one of the journalists asked about the statement made by a French parliamentary member, said, "Why don't you just give us back the Statue of Liberty?" She then said, not only did she not realize it was a gift from France, but she then said, "Why don't you thank us that you're not speaking German?" I'm like, listen, bitch, I'm not even from your country, and I know the only reason you're not still a British colony is because the French came back then and helped you. So
right. Well, the other thing about that thing is kind of funny is her ideology. If her ideology had won out in the 40s, we would be speaking German.
Yeah.
and not to mention that, I think most people today are aware that the U.S. joined the war really late, and it was actually the Russians that saved Europe.
Well, it wasn't really late. It was 41. The war started in September of 39, but the first 8 months was actually known as Sitzkrieg, where very little happened because, but I mean, I always got that's a little sore point for me because we were in the war for 4 years and we missed like a year and a half, so it's not really late.
Listen,
and we were providing material support for that.
Oh, you want to go there? You want to go there, Joe?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons you guys didn't want to join the war. Understandably, right? That's why, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist normally, but you guys were like, okay, we don't want to get into this war, but we know it has to be won. So let's do it. Let's do it the easiest way possible. Let's provide money and arms. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like, oh, geez, what if they lose? We're not going to get paid back. So it wasn't magnanimous. I can't say the word. It wasn't because you really cared, guys. You waited till the Japanese came. I'm not done. You waited till the Japanese came and bombed Pearl Harbor. That was the only way your president knew that the United States people would get behind going to war again.
Oh,
because this is all over World War I. They didn't want to do it again. I understand that, but like it wasn't like, oh, we'll just give them the stuff because we're so darn nice.
Oh no, but the thing is, our military buildup actually started in 38, so we knew it was coming. We in 39, Roosevelt got 24 aircraft carriers authorized. Now you don't go and build 24 aircraft carriers if you're not planning on going to war.
Yeah. But he knew that he needed something to convince the public, or he wouldn't get elected again.
Well, I'm convinced that he knew it was coming, and that's because and people have tried to debunk it, but the two aircraft carriers that were at Pearl Harbor were supposed to be at dock, and suddenly the day before, 24 hours before, they get sent out to sea. I don't think that was a coincidence.
And not only that, the ships that were there were like near the end of their lifetime.
Yeah.
And they weren't really the best of the Navy.
No.
So
No.
yeah, there was something going on there. And I do not kin to conspiracies very often, if at all. But that one,
Oh,
but
for sure.
I love, Raven, that you realized that it was the Russians that made the boldest, greatest number of sacrifice, at least by manpower, at least alone, by leaps and bounds. And that's what really pisses me off. Like,
Well, I mean, the Russian,
every person that gave their life,
the Russian military, I mean, today they're a bit of a clown show.
Yeah.
But I mean, historically, they haven't been.
Yeah.
Historically, you're talking about troops that will march over the corpses of their comrades without even, stopping, to really think about it in order to move forward. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask of anybody.
And I'm not saying that the American
doing that.
loss was insignificant, or that the people that died in the Second World War from any country are insignificant. It's just a lot of people failed to recognize that at the time, and I don't like Russia now. I have nothing against Russian people. I don't like their government. I don't like their war machine. But there were so many Russians that lost their lives. It was unbelievable. And people have forgotten that.
Oh yeah, I mean, one from the war itself, two from Stalin. So 26 million Russians died during the war. I mean, that's like crazy. That's a crazy number.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you wonder, like, if it wasn't for Stalin's purges of the military before the war, the Russians would have done even better than they did. But unfortunately, because he was a paranoid, dictator, that he basically went after guys that he figured were a threat to him. Thankfully, he did not kill off Georgy Zhukov, because Georgy Zhukov was probably best ground general in the war. I mean, he was really great. Schmittler,
did a lot of things to win the war for us, right? He didn't extend the submarines. His submarine general said, we need more of these. They're an excellent new weaponry. They'll help us. He said, nah. He invaded Russia. Shouldn't have.
In the winter.
He stopped the Blitz at the beaches and let the trained British soldiers leave.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, see, it's funny because a lot of people say that he was intelligent. He made so many mistakes. And it's funny. I had a conversation with a friend years ago, and this was right after the whole Abu Ghraib story broke. And we were talking about a mutual friend that was basically making excuses for the torture, right? And I said, look, we've, heretofore have put ourselves out that we're better, we're a better people than our enemies because our enemies do horrible things and we don't do the horrible things. And that really, to me, is the difference between good and evil is very often not in motivations, it's methods, right? If you're willing to torture people and run over people with tanks and do all this kind of horrible stuff, it doesn't matter how righteous your cause is, you've gone too far. And I said, that's the thing, is that, good has a higher standard to live up to. And he said, well, Joe, in history, how has the good side ever won, given that the bad guys can always just do whatever heinous stuff they want? And I said, really, it comes down to hubris. It really comes down to, it's usually some dictator, and they're so full of themselves, and eventually they believe their own propaganda about themselves and won't tolerate any dissent.
And that's and tonight's topic, when we're talking about Schmittler, and we're talking about American politics right now, and how so many people have said that Schmittler did, what?
Smith?
Schmittler.
Smith. Schmittler just sounds silly. It's Smith.
Okay, so
Schmittler.
we look at the similarities. There's so many we could make right now, but just alone what we just already talked about, there's some things that people will look back on and say that Smith was really good at doing such and such and such. And these same people today are looking at what Trump's doing. They're like, oh, look, he did something really good there and there and there. But like Joe just said, hubris is going to be the downfall. And I hope that it comes soon, and
So-
I think that's going to be the end for him, the hubris.
Yeah, I mean, even
Tonight's broadcast. Sorry. You good?
well,
Are
no,
you good?
sorry.
I was just gonna like go into like
Let's go. Go ahead, Raven.
what happened.
No, never
Okay.
mind.
The broadcast tonight. The broadcast tonight is the title is The Not So Great Leap. And I was watching an interview with Pete Buttigieg, and he was talking about when Trump is gone, our goal should not be to go back to what was. Hey, puppy. That's over. That's gone. That's done. The U.S. as we knew it pre-Trump is over. And we shouldn't try to get it back, but we should try to redo everything better. Like if we have to rebuild it, then it should be better.
Yeah.
What's interesting, what got me thinking, is the motivation of Trump, according to Steve Bannon, is the destruction of the administrative state. Right? They want to tear down the government and they want to rebuild it in their image. They want to rebuild it in the way that they think a government should be run. And so from their perspective, it's the same thing as the Great Leap Forward. And if you believe in the kinds of things that the ultra-right and the Steve Bannons of the world believe, that you would see that as a good thing, as trying to, make the government better from their point of view. The problem is, number one, it's kind of objectively not. One, and number two, the Great Leap Forward killed lots of people.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the Great Leap Forward, the millions of people that died of famine.
that's right. And ironically, it was like they basically tried to turn people into farmers. In fact, a guy who I used to work with, he was from China. He was there when all that shit was happening. And here you guys, a guy with an engineering degree, and he was like, they put me on a farm. I know how to farm. And so it's kind of like what happened in I forget which African country it was, but where they, look, it was obviously a place that had been colonized by Europeans. So they kicked out all the people of European descent farmers and then just gave the farmland to people who didn't know how to farm. And lo and behold, famine resulted.
Kenya?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I know it's probably happened a couple places, but I know that Kenya had not just kicking out of, but the murder of people that have been there for generations. We can argue whether or not they should have been there to begin with, but they had been there for generations and they were farmers. So, how Scottish do you have to be, right?
The rapid, like for the Great Leap Forward in China, it was the rapid industrialization. That was the plan. They wanted to turn their mostly agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse. I mean, which obviously can be done. Right? Many countries have done it, but they wanted to do it now. Like flipping a switch. We're going to go from farmers to industry.
They had no regulations. There was no rules, and now China's water is completely polluted. Its air is foul. Its animal life. It's flora. It's fauna. I mean, it's not good, and that's too bad because if they'd taken the time to do it right, But what's funny is that what a lot of people don't.
I mean, China today is an industrial powerhouse, though.
Yeah. But it's soil.
China today is an industrial powerhouse. I mean, right.
But it took
so I mean, it took 60 years. Right. And yeah, poisoned water, poisoned soil, poisoned air, and millions dead.
Well, this is the reason.
And it's like somebody in the Trump administration needs to look at history.
Well, this is the reason why anytime.
Is there a lag?
Yeah, it was yours. There's quite a bit of lag. Wait, not on your voice, but your image just keeps popping, freezing and moving. Um, well, it's like there's people we know and people friends of people we know that have said it's about, oh, we need a revolution, and I'm like, you need to read history a lot closer, because most revolutions did not end up the way the revolutionaries intended. Um, Hell, even like the French Revolution, the first wave of revolutionaries, almost to a person, were executed by the second wave of revolutionaries because they weren't revolutionary enough.
Yeah.
And it took them 84 years to get to a stable republic. And after going back to going to authoritarianism, then to monarchy, then back to republic, and they flip flopped several times. The Russian Revolution has never really been good since it happened. And China, they're still having problems. So it's like, basically the American Revolution is kind of, the odd revolution out, really.
You know what else too is that a lot of people, Americans, I'm sorry to say, are like, American number one. We're the best nation in the world. It's like, well, if you open a history book, you would see that the Greek. They was a powerhouse at one time, and then the Romans were a powerhouse at one time, and so on and so on and so on. There's a lifespan which connects to what you're saying, Raven, with your title here today, is the Great Leap Forward. Is with any great society, there is a lifespan before there's a change. And the best you can hope for, I think, is how you can change that. Is it either through war and famine, great revolutions like that, or like, is it intellectual renewal, like that sort of thing? I'm still here.
Okay. Am I still lagging?
Not as much.
Yeah.
Not as much.
As much. I plugged my camera into a different thing. So the computer I have only has like 2 available USB ports. And it's brand new. I've had the computer for like 2 weeks.
It is doing a lot
but
better.
it's only got yeah. So I have a hub, and a lot of my stuff is plugged into the hub. And I had for a while my mouse or the keyboard, I don't know, one or the other, was plugged into the hub, and it was the keyboard. And there was a lag when I typed, so I had to rearrange everything. And I'm thinking it's the hub is causing the causing the lag.
You're still lagging a little bit.
Because
it gets chopped up a tiny bit, but I can keep up with you.
I would plug the camera in directly and have the mouse and keyboard in the hub.
I can't type.
If it's plugged into the hub?
Yeah, there's a really bad lag with the keyboard if it's plugged into the hub.
Oh, by the way, speaking of keyboard, if anyone's like typing in comments, I cannot see them because I'm on my phone. So if it's important, read them to me.
Well, Nadia Yvette Chambers said Russia was just the largest of the SSRs of the USSR.
The largest of what?
Basically, it was the largest Soviet republic in the USSR. Russia was, which is true. Well, not the largest, but it was the most dominant, certainly. But I mean, I'll tell you what, though. I mean, think about the Ukraine war and just looking at the absolute fiasco that the Russian military is on the battlefield. They've captured a fair bit of ground, but it's been at an enormous cost. And of late, there's been for the last year or so, it's been largely stagnant, and they've lost they lose just as much as they gain.
Yeah.
And they're getting to the point now where they can't even field enough tanks that they actually have guys driving buses and motor scooters and golf carts doing assaults.
They're having trouble feeding and doing first aid as well. Yep. And as if they were as big and bad, like war never is as short as anyone says it's going to be. Everyone's like, oh, it'll be over by Christmas. That's never true. That's whatever war. But if they were as big and bad as everyone thought they were, the Ukraine would have been done by now.
Exactly.
I want
Well,
the
that's why-
Ukraine to win.
Well, that's why I think it's funny that there's still people out there, like trying to scare us that, oh, Russia's going to try to take over the rest of Europe. Take over the rest of Europe. They can't even take over their next door neighbor. What the hell are you talking about? You know, and the thing is that I've been watching. I watch a lot of the mill bloggers, and there's some guys that there's this one group of guys. What they're doing is they constantly are getting the satellite imagery of the various like Russian depots, because most of the Russian storage were outside. They didn't have them inside, or like the U.S. does, or like we have the boneyard, so basically stuff gets disassembled and packaged and preserved. They just have stuff outside, and most of those depots are empty now. So on paper they had 15,000 tanks, but most of that stuff was not even usable.
I know.
So
Yep.
they've largely run out of stuff. So I'm like, yeah,
And-
I'm not afraid of them.
And morale, which is a really big and important part of any fighting force, is horribly low. They're not getting paid. They're not getting fed. They're not getting pulled back off the line for breaks.
Yeah. Normally you would rotate troops out after a certain amount of time, but they don't. They're not yet. They're not getting any relief at all.
Yeah, and I was really embarrassed, a secondhand embarrassment, when someone who's supposed to be a statesman spoke to Zelensky like that, and I'm talking about Vance and Trump. I thought that was just disgusting. Whether you agree with the man or not, which you should, by the way, because he's a fucking star. I love him. You shouldn't treat when you're a statesman. You should have some decorum. And that was awful.
I was going to respond to Nadia here. So Alan Dulles, I know I love the Nazis holding back in Europe was the hopes of Germany destroying the USSR. Probably true. And the invasion largely to stop the USSR's advance. Now, I got to disagree with the next one. Lend-Lease was not actually much. I mean, just Sherman tanks alone, there was 26,000 tanks that we gave I sold to, or at least to the Brits, not counting all other things. So to say it's not much, that's not true. But the rest of it's probably true. I know that was something that Patton felt. Patton felt like we were fighting he actually said we were fighting the wrong people. And then after the war was over, or he was kind of like the governor of the military governor of Germany for a while, or at least part of Germany anyway. And he wouldn't fire the Nazis who were in charge of running stuff, because he's like, well, if you send me people who know how to run stuff, because which there's a point to that, but eventually they all got taken out. But
well, no, actually, not as many as there should have been. There was quite a few leftover Smiths that retained their positions afterwards. It was actually very hard to find, like in the Nuremberg trials, to find prosecutors and defenders that hadn't been influenced, shall we say, prior to the trials. And
Smith.
Smiths.
I heard some time ago, I heard a nickname for Trump that I thought it was appropriate now, but it's even more appropriate now. I thought it was appropriate then, but it's even more appropriate now. Is Twitler.
Yeah. But like,
So
for
is
my
my
American
lag
friends that
ever,
are
is it
watching,
gone or
sorry, just really
no?
quickly,
Apparently not.
for my American
see.
friends that are watching, I'm Canadian. We don't hate you. All right. You're our neighbors. We've got along for many, many years. We've been excellent training partners. In fact, we've not relied on you at all. We're not a leech. In fact, if you actually look at the numbers, you guys owe us money, by the way, because you've taken out a loan from us. And we have sold petrol to you at a massive cut. So we are not taking an advantage of you. In fact, it's pretty damn close and even, if not leaning towards our side. But we're okay with that because that's what good neighbors do. And if you want more proof of how good we are as neighbors, go look at a little documentary called, Yellow Ribbon, Mission Yellow Ribbon. It's about 9/11 and what happened to all your planes that were in the air at the time because your entire airspace was shut down. So those planes had to go somewhere. And if they could return to the country they came to, they would. But there were a lot of planes that would have run out of fuel over the ocean. Everyone would have died. We let them land here in Canada, not knowing if there was any more Marimists in those planes or not. So, yeah.
This just makes them sound like they're happy.
Okay. Schmerimists. But like we've been really good trading partners. Like and there's only one person you have to blame right now. And don't look at us for it. Look to your president, okay, guys?
Well, in
And
fact,
when we gripe about it and when we get angry and we let off steam about it, know that it's not directed at you personally, guys. It's directed at one man.
well, in fact, one thing I point out to people is that, with the exception of Vietnam, Canada has been right there with us in every other single conflict we've been in for the last 60 years.
Yep.
And even in, as far as Vietnam goes, Canada provided peacekeepers in '73 to enforce the Paris Peace Accord. So,
Yeah.
so even in Vietnam, so you guys didn't fight in Vietnam, but you still helped out, in your own way. So it's like, yeah, you guys have been there with us right every step of the way.
Some Canadians did go south of the border and join the military.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like officially,
Yeah, no, officially, yes, you're right. Vietnam, we did not go to. But like you guys needed us for Iraq, Afghanistan. We're like, yeah, man, we're there for you.
Yeah.
Even
Well,
though
that's
we were
why
lied
I
to.
never understood why he was like, going after Canada. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? They're like right there. They're like, they're with us all the time. Even times they shouldn't be, they probably should have thought better of it. They were still there with us. What the fuck?
Yeah. And just a helpful reminder that the Geneva Convention was sort of written because of us.
Yes.
And Poland.
Yep.
Poland.
I'm laughing because there's a couple of mill bloggers that I watch, Habitual Line Crosser and Mandatory Fun Day. And they
Mandatory Fun Day.
He's great, and he brings up about the Geneva suggestions. Yeah, checklist. Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, he's like, so I love it when he does. Everyone check out Mandatory Fun Day. He's an American soldier. He does a lot about mental health. The VA, excellent guy. He's still in, and he does some of his videos. He puts little flags above his head, so he plays different countries, and it's a lot between America and Britain, right? Because you guys work a lot together, and then all of a sudden, like Canada will pop in, or Poland, or whatever, and he's like, and whenever Canada or Poland sort of pop into the videos, it's like, do you have the Geneva checklist? And they're like, stop calling it a checklist. Okay, it's not a war crime the first time.
I just posted the link for everybody to go check him out because he's awesome.
Yeah. I got to go to the ladies' room.
All right, enjoy. Excuse me.
So
the other big thing both him and Habitual Line Crosser are about not touching the boats. Don't touch our boats. And then Habitual Line Crosser, he does nations too, and he does voices. And whenever somebody's like, there's a threat to United States Navy ships, he always does Japan like, we told you, don't touch the boats. We touched the boats once. Yeah, I mean, that's what's the thing, seeing conservatives in Canada, it's like, it's so weird at this point. Like, normally conservatism crops up at times of like when things are economically bad and everybody's fucked. And over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a rise of conservatism in countries where it actually wasn't doing so badly. And it's like, well, what the fuck? What's happening?
Start currently pulling lumber out of the national forests.
I know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's
So I-
horrible.
That's crazy.
And you
Yeah,
don't
well, they're
even
blaming
need to.
the-
You don't even need to. We have so much soft lumber up here. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean that's what they're saying is because of the tariffs with Canada. Um, now we have to do this because, but I mean, it's just like, but yeah, dude, you started this. Like
Right.
this was, but I mean, it has nothing to do with Canada or the tariffs, though, because he wanted to drill for oil in the national parks in his first term.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is something that he's already talked about years ago. So now his thing is, oh, because of Canada and the tariffs and everything else, we're gonna have to start chopping down the national forest.
What gets
People
me
are
out
fucking
on
insane.
Prof MTH posted a thing from NBC News that apparently on Thursday Trump suggested that that the undocumented farm workers could leave and then come back as long as somebody vouched for them. And I'm like, so here he was all, oh, we got to deport him, but it's like, well, wait. So all the farmers are like screaming because they don't have enough workers, and so it's like, oh, well, we can continue to exploit people, and I can pretend like that was always the idea, like.
yeah, because
That
farmers
pisses
are
me off
like,
the most.
your food's gonna like rot in the fields, and what food we can harvest is gonna cost people a lot of money to buy now.
Right.
And Trump's an idiot.
Well, that's what gets me about for years. Every time they go after, they want to go after undocumented farm workers, and I'm like, they contribute so much more to the economy than whatever little bit of services they consume. We're well ahead, in balance,
And they pay taxes, and they can't get Social Security, they can't get unemployment, they can't get old age pension.
Right.
And what worries me is because not a lot of people realize this, but slavery is not completely abolished in the United States.
Right.
If you are incarcerated, you can be treated like a slave.
Right.
So what I foresee, and I hope it doesn't happen, is that they will round up anyone without a green card, and then in Texas and other states down by the border,
Right.
and people, billionaires have already bought some land there, and some states have already dedicated some land saying, oh, you can house everyone here.
Right.
Because when you round up millions and millions of people, there is a process to make them leave, right? It will take months, if not years, to send people away. So you're going to house and feed them, right? And then the justification will be, well, since we're housing and feeding you, and we need those fields picked,
right,
you're going to go do that now.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like, oh man, instead of, paying them the peanuts we used to when they did this on the farms, they're doing it for free now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's going to be, they're fucking concentration camps.
Well, this is
the thing is, it's not going to be cost effective though, because you have to house and feed people, and that costs money.
But the taxpayers pay for that. That's the whole thing. But the corporations that will own the farmland will make the benefit and basically have labor, and they'll pay pennies on the dollar for the workers, and the taxpayers will basically subsidize the workforce. Yeah. That's exactly what they was. Christine has it right on the head. And that already happens now because I was watching the thing and it talks about like a lot of these guys they were in jail and they work and they get paid like 6 cents an hour, and the companies that hire them they have obviously they're getting paid a lot more than 6 cents an hour, and the thing is that they'll get paid minimum wage or better for someone that's getting paid 6 cents. and the state gets a little bit of that, but not most of it, and most of it's going to private corporations. So it's effectively a government funded slave labor force for private companies, so the private companies can pay pennies and get workers, which is totally fucked up.
Wait, there's more.
The taxpayers are
there's more.
already.
I was just going to say really quickly, those private companies that are the jails themselves also get subsidies from your taxpayer money. So it's even worse.
U.S. taxpayers are already subsidizing major corporations that are employing legal citizens and natural born citizens, U.S. citizens. Walmart, they pay their employees so little that they qualify for welfare benefits. And then those people spend their welfare benefits for their groceries and stuff at Walmart. So, I mean, it's almost the same damn thing.
They actually have classes, or at least a quick 10-minute seminar when you're first hired at Walmart, explaining to you exactly how to fill that paperwork out.
Right. And basically,
so I know at one point, I don't know about anymore, but at one point, Walmart had in their corporate office, they actually had an office that specialized in helping manufacturers move their operations overseas so that they can then make their products for less, and then Walmart could buy them and sell them for less.
Oh yeah.
Well, and all of this goes directly back to chattel slavery. So when chattel slavery was outlawed, your 13th Amendment says you can't do it except in incarceration. So then you had this little thing called the Black Codes. And so basically the Black Codes were basically laws designed to basically make criminals out of Black people.
Yeah.
It's
if you didn't have money in your pocket, if you're loitering.
That's right. Yeah, loitering is a totally bullshit made up crime simply so they could, round up Black people and throw them in jail. And for that matter, it's part of the reason why if you're on if you get out of jail and you're on probation, you can't leave the district, because they didn't want people to okay, I'm out of jail and I'm going to go somewhere else and report to a probation officer somewhere else. Well, they wanted you to stay there so they could find another reason to put you back in jail.
Yep.
So Mean Street
and that's
MMA.
why weed is such a great one, because if you're running a jail, you don't want hardened criminals that are hard to supervise, right? You want a non-violent criminal in your jail. So let's get all the people that smoke weed, put them in jail, and then make them work for peanuts,
I thought so. UPOS. I was looking for you. I was like searching all over the friggin' place for you. All over Facebook, asking people. I all these posts. Has anybody seen Tommy?
Who?
Has anybody seen Tommy? Tommy from the Bronx. Where's Tommy? Where's Tommy? Right? I broadcast. Where's Tommy? Where are you? And I was just like, maybe he just gave up on the internet. There you are.
Nice.
Wow.
Is he in the comments? Because I can't read them.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to address what he said here, because it's totally on point. So Walmart is modern day coal miners in the company store. And it even goes for the company town. Because you think about it, Walmart comes in, they use predatory practices, they drive out all the local businesses, and then the only job in town is to work for Walmart, and then of course, as Raven said, and then you go and you spend all your money at Walmart. It's the company town where basically the company owns everything, and everyone in town is beholden to that company.
You're paid just enough to buy the groceries at the store you work at.
Not even. They pay you less than because what happens is then you have to go on assistance. Most of the people in this country that are on like food stamps, they're all working. Most of them are employed. The majority of people who are on assistance are employed. Walmart is the largest employer in the country, and they pay their people so little that they have to go on government assistance. And then they spend their government assistance at the store they work at. And look, you're getting a 10% discount. Aren't you lucky? And it's ridiculous. It should be illegal. I mean, they're raping the government and their employees at the same time.
It should be illegal to pay someone so little that they actually qualify for government assistance.
Yeah. And I was watching a show today. The United States is the richest nation in the world right now. But you have of all the Western nations, like that's the nations that you're supposed to have at least a decent chance in, guys, to live, have access to the good things in life. You have the lowest life expectancy, the highest infant mortality rates. 50% of your population might go broke from an unexpected health emergency. It's how can you be the richest nation with the poorest people? I don't get that.
Because poor people own everything.
Right.
Yeah.
When I used to work for a company that was based in Oakville, Ontario, and so we had a healthcare plan, and at one point, because it was kind of difficult for that company, they weren't used to dealing with the U.S. regulations, because you don't have to deal with this shit in Canada, right? Because you have the national, your national healthcare system. So
It's provincial, but that's okay.
right, well, okay, provincial, you have a healthcare system.
Yes.
A government funded healthcare system.
Yeah.
And so at one point they were talking about dropping our group plan and just having us go get our own plan and just reimbursing us. And I told my boss flat out, if you do that, I'm quitting. And this was after I just got promoted to chief engineer, and so he really wanted to understand. So we had to go to New York City for a meeting. And as Raven knows, if you have to drive, even from where I live, to drive into Manhattan, that's a long drive, even though it's 12 miles that way. So we had this nice long conversation on the way out and on the way back. And I explained, one, you can't get an individual plan that has the same coverage as a group plan. It's just not possible. It's
Right.
not available.
You buying power is driven by numbers.
Exactly. So I said, so I said that's the problem. So I can't get on. I have prescriptions that I'm going to be taking for the rest of my life. Like, and then I said, plus, if you're going to be reimbursing us, the amount that those individual plans that aren't going to be as good cost way more than what you're paying us now. So you're not going to save any money. Yeah. You'll get rid of the regulatory headache, but that's it. You're still going to cost you more in the long run. And so he was kind of flabbergasted, because he was, big, he was very pro-American guy. And he was like, well, Christ, Joe, you guys are, you're America and you're so rich. And he goes, and he's like, so Joe, what happens when someone doesn't have, if they have something serious and they don't have coverage? I said, they die, Don, they die. And he was floored. He's like, I can't believe in the United States of America that you would let that happen. I'm like, we're fucked up, Don. We're really
Joe,
fucked up.
My dad is in the cult, right?
Right.
He's drank the Kool-Aid. He wasn't so much when you met him. In fact, I don't think he was at all.
Right.
But since then, he's and I'm like, Dad, you realize that I had a spinal cord injury, okay? I would still have my broken back. You might not have your house. I definitely wouldn't have my house.
Right.
I'd probably be homeless, living on the streets. He still doesn't get it.
Right.
And like when I try and tell American friends, I'm like, yes, yeah, I know it's not free. Yes, I pay taxes. But when it comes down to it, the amount of money I pay in taxes, because the same show I'm telling you about the infant mortality rate and stuff, there's common misconception that we're paying 50% of our money is going to taxes.
Right.
No, actually, it's not. When we compare our taxes to the states, once you add up all the taxes, like federal, sales tax, your state tax, and taxes on services, like paying for your health care by yourselves.
Right.
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 54% for you guys. Right. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 11% for someone like me. Okay. So not only that, when my government, yes, it's a federal budget, but then the money's released to the provinces and we have provincial health care. So it's slightly different province to province, but for the sake of argument, it's the same. Okay. But because it starts at the federal level and we start our budget there, our entire nation has 40 million people now can say to a drug company, we want to buy insulin from you, but we've got 40 million possible customers. So
Right.
you're going to give us a really good price.
Yep.
And of course you're going to say, yeah, we want 40 million customers.
Right.
We'll give you a good price. And that goes for every drug. And even though like I don't make enough
people
money.
in the U.S. dying. People in the U.S. dying from not having health care, like before Obamacare, it was really bad. You heard about it all the time where people would be in emergency rooms, in the waiting room, in the emergency rooms, and die while they're sitting there because they weren't seen because they didn't have insurance or because that the hospitals were so busy that nobody got to them. People leaving, being actually thrown out of a hospital because they didn't have insurance or a way to pay. And there was a guy, he went to the bus stop and then dropped dead on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Actually,
I
it happens all the time.
I have a personal example. The True Puka. Okay, he works for me. His wife works for me. Before I had she wasn't working for me just yet. But she was having some like palpitations and arrhythmia and all that. She went to the emergency room with like a 200 beats per minute, and they got her down to 132 and then said, "Oh, you're stable and get the fuck out." And it's like, no, 132 is not goddamn stable. You should be at 60, 70, 80 at most. But they said that's good enough, get out. And so she's running that with double the heart rate that she should have had, and they said that's good enough. You can leave now because she didn't have insurance at the time.
And Phil, there are long waits here. Like when people talk about Canada, they're like, "Oh, there's long waits." We have long waits here too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you like if you have to have a procedure done, and I mean, what constitutes an emergency is different for different people. But like it could be like, oh yeah, in 2 months you can have the procedure done. What the fuck do I have to wait 2 months for? Because there's a line, because there's a wait, and that's when they're going to get to you.
And if you have no coverage, your wait is forever.
And
if you have no coverage, your wait is forever.
And this whole misconception about there being a long waiting list and not being able to find a doctor or have a doctor of your choice is not a complete lie. It's a lot of a lie. But at one time, our healthcare system was hands down awesome. Still great. But what I've noticed, and I'm not the only one, is that our premiers, those are the people in charge of our provinces, once they get the money for our provincial healthcare, they're not, because of the way our government works, the federal government can't tell the provinces, even though we earmark this money for healthcare, you have to use it that way. Our premiers can turn around and say, I'm not going to use that for healthcare. So what they'll do is that, and what they have been doing slowly, a lot of them being conservatives, by the way,
of course,
have slowly started reducing, even though the money's been given to them, putting that money towards our healthcare system. So it's not like our healthcare system is failing because it's at its core a broken system. It's because the conservative leaders of those provinces are slowly not funding, and things are getting older and broken, and then people are waiting a little bit longer because they want their buddies, their billionaire buddies, to come into Canada now from the States and expand their private corporations and private healthcare insurance companies here.
So conservatives here in the U.S. Have done something similar to the education system here, where ever since the Reagan administration, they've been little by little just scraping away and taking money away from the Department of Education. And now we get to where we are right now, where it's like, what Department of Education? we have a cabinet member that in charge of the Department of Education, but we no longer have the department. So.
Well, because the less educated are going to vote conservative.
Right. Well, and another lie that's told about the Canadian system, the British system, pretty much anywhere that has a rational healthcare funding system, and that's how I always say it's a healthcare funding system, because people, a lot of times Americans, conservatives will try to call it government run healthcare. It isn't. you guys have the exact same healthcare, like healthcare providing companies that we do. You have all the same drug companies, same medical device companies,
Yep.
all that stuff. You guys have all of it. I know because I've actually done work for them. And I've got relatives who have worked on stuff in Europe and all that kind of stuff. So it's all the same companies. The difference is you guys have a government funded system that basically takes the onus off the individual citizen and puts it into the collective. Whereas ours is, this ridiculous thing that basically is dependent on either, businesses like mine or the individual, which is stupid. I mean, I tried to explain this to a number of conservatives, like, okay, I'm a small company, right? I'm not legally required to have a healthcare plan, but if I don't, I'm not going to be able to recruit anybody worth a damn, because anyone who's worth anything will go to a company who has a healthcare plan. So it means I have to have it as a practical matter. But because I'm a small company, my like you said, Christine, your buying power is based on the size of your group. So I'm a small group, so I pay a higher rate than my larger competitors. But also, since I'm a small company, in order to attract clients, I have to charge less than those bigger companies, because if I'm going to charge the same amount as a big company, they're just going to go with the big company, right? Some company with more depth and all that. So I'm at this huge competitive disadvantage. And on top of it, if you do have a healthcare plan, there's a lot of regulations you have to abide by. Otherwise, you can get sued out of existence. You can get fined out of existence.
Wait, but Joe, aren't you guys the land of the free, and you just have to pull up your
Oh
bootstraps?
yeah, pull my bootstraps. So I have all this thing, and then that means I got to devote staff time. And when you have a staff of 100, having one person or two people devoted to that's not a big deal. When you have 10 people, having to devote a person to that is a lot more. It's a bigger cost. So I'm at this huge competitive disadvantage. And then it gets me involved with something. I'm not a healthcare company. I don't know shit about all that stuff. So, and then why am I getting involved with my employees' healthcare decisions? I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to be involved. I'd much rather pay a tax bill and then be out of it. And so, and then I could just compete against my competitors based on work-life balance, pay, other intangibles. So that's actually a conservative case for a government funded thing, right? Because then now I'm competing on a level playing field with my larger competitors, as opposed to having this undue burden.
And your healthcare system is less effective.
So Nadia,
sorry.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
It's also less effective because the incentive for your health providers in the States is not to do healthcare, but to squeeze out as much money from insurance companies as they can. Right. So you're getting more tests than you need. So other people have to wait longer for that test when they might need it, actually. Right. And then the government, you're like, oh, but Christine, your taxes, you're still paying with your taxes. Well, a lot of your tax money goes to healthcare anyway, because people will go into the hospital in the ER, give the wrong name, or not be able to pay, and that hospital, because it's a private company, turns to the government and says, "You're going to pay us."
Right. That, and whatever they can't get the government to pay for, they basically charge everybody else. So when you go for yourself, you're actually paying more than you would have if because they got to get their money back somehow.
Apparently, I still have a really bad lag, and I don't know why. It couldn't be the computer. I mean, it's a brand new computer, like all kinds of memory and everything else, and it's fast. I don't know why I got such a bad lag, but.
Well, it's not. I think, Raven, what it is when you first start to speak, there's a lag. Once it gets going, it's okay. But like I've seen several times, you've opened your mouth and there's no sound for like a good second. So if we're not happening to looking at you at the moment, we don't realize you're talking, and then the sound comes when when we've already started talking. But when you just started talking now, once the sound picked up, it was fine.
So go like this.
I actually did that a couple times.
Oh, sorry.
See, and there's a couple seconds in between there, so there was still a lag. So there is a lag. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on with this, but it's making me crazy. Actually, it's really, really, really annoying. Anyway, I just wanted to say to Nadia about 1,000 minutes ago, she had said about uh wow, I know my video just went out. About where did you put it? Yeah. Type 1 diabetes. NASA, and that was after Obamacare. And yeah, it was what I was saying before, though. The point of what I was saying was it was even worse before.
Right.
It was, before Obamacare, it was even worse than that. And then Phil had said Obamacare is so gutted, it's now essentially useless. Now, I was on Medicaid for the majority of the last decade. And I'm not anymore because I make too much money. So I work a part-time job um, at a school. I'm a paraprofessional, and I don't make enough money to do much of anything, but I make too much money to get Medicaid. So my medications and everything else that I have to have, I can't get anymore through Medicaid. So I had to get an insurance plan through the marketplace because of Obamacare. So it's not completely useless. I now have insurance that starts on May 1st because of the existence of the marketplace. So
Yeah. Oh, and that's really the thing. It's state by state, depending on what each state did, and even Medicare, Medicaid eligibility. Because you remember Schizophrenic Queen?
Mhm.
Yeah. So when she
Yeah.
lived in Kansas, and she had basically no income, just her VA benefits, and they said, oh, she wasn't eligible for Medicaid. And with her same conditions, I actually went and looked into it. She could have been perfectly fine in New Jersey. She would have qualified for Medicaid. She would have qualified for SNAP. She would have qualified for housing assistance, all this stuff. And in Kansas, basically, she had to live with her parents who were basically mentally abusive to her, and she already was somebody with with mental illness problems. And it wasn't until basically when she married Tinky and moved to Montana that she actually was able to get away from that and actually, be able to get what she really needs.
I don't pay anything. No, that's a lie. One of my medications, and I'm on 7 medications. And I pick them up every Thursday, 1 week's worth. I pay $1.39 for one of them.
Nice.
Because the only reason I pay $1.39 for one of them is because I'm getting the brand name version that dissolves immediately, as opposed to the one that I would have to wait for it to take effect for 15 minutes.
And here's the thing: I've got probably some of the best coverage that you could get because I'm on Suzanne's plan, and she's worked in healthcare, worked for pharma for 20 years, 25 years. So that's continued. And I pay $180 a month for my Ozempic. And that's a good price because if I didn't have the coverage, it would be $1,500 a month. Yeah.
If I picked up my pills once a month, I would pay that $139 once a month.
Right. Yeah.
It's basically because like a filling fee might be $13 if you make so much money. Mine is $139.
That's nice and cheap. That's awesome.
So let me say, and I've been wanting to say this since the beginning of the stream, you look good, Joe.
Yeah.
You lost weight.
Yeah.
It's immediately noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's why I've got a chin now. Because Christine, actually it was a year ago when it was last Easter weekend when you came down for in Philadelphia for the.
I did it. Joe was gracious enough, and I'm still very thankful, to bring me down to Philadelphia. I still remember that Moroccan restaurant. That food was.
Yeah, that place. I love that place. Marrakesh. It's awesome.
Yeah, but it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year because back next week is the next one, which is in Minneapolis, and it's always on Easter, so it's plus or minus a week or so. It's pretty much in a year, and so since you saw me, Christine, I'm down about 90 pounds,
Right on.
and about
Trying to
70
get
of
it to
that
do that thing.
has been since the end of September and the end of August. Oh, thanks. Um, and since since the last time I came up to see you, I'm down because yeah, it's about 100, a little over 100 pounds since you saw me last. Now I've got a long way to go, but yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah, you have a neck
It's
and a
funny,
chin,
I
and
saw,
yeah,
I went back and I was looking at some videos that I did. Somebody commented on a video I did in 2011, and so I went back and I watched the video, and that was at my peak. I weighed about 600 pounds at that point. So, and now I just weighed in a couple days ago, and I'm at 466 basically. And I'm just like, my face is just like round and like no definition, and I saw a picture that was even worse from about the same time. Guy used to be a friend of mine. I was his best man, and I have him blocked on Facebook, but I don't have his ex-wife blocked. And so the pictures came up, and I'm looking at myself. I'm like, Jesus Christ, was I look terrible. So yeah, it's nice to have some definition to my face.
Phil in the comments he just said that you are noticeably smaller, while I am noticeably larger.
Yes, you are. The only reason I didn't comment because I comment all the time because you post new pictures and I'm always commenting. So, but
They're nicer.
yeah, so
they're nicer looking than mine.
And well, so a year ago, my A1C was 10.6. In late September, it was 7.7, and in January it was 6.4. So it actually 6.4 is low enough that I would actually consider if I'm obviously I'm on medication, but if I wasn't, that would actually only be considered pre-diabetic. And
right.
Yeah, so it's been great, and I've been in a little bit like of late. I was kind of stuck. The weight wasn't really going off. I was kind of like I was kept going plus or minus 5 pounds, but now I'm finally starting to move again in the right direction. I think I was just kind of I needed to change a few things, but yeah, so it's been great for both the weight loss
So
and
you weigh about 2 of me. So,
well, think about it. I used to weigh almost 3 of you.
Better than me.
Yeah, I used to weigh almost 3 of you, so it's an improvement.
There you go.
So it's kind of like Scaramucci's. It's like I weigh how many
ravens to drop about 2 ravens. I am looking to drop about 50 pounds myself at this point. That's where I'm looking to, between 50 and 60. So
nice.
That's a lot.
Christine is looking at me like I'm crazy.
Holy shit! Phil went from A1C of 15. How are you even conscious? Jesus Christ! Now I still do take metformin, although I'm not sure I even need to, because I found out like metformin's a kind of drug that it's not something you could OD on, right? Basically, if you take more than you need, it just doesn't do anything. It just passes through your system. So I could probably, or at least right now I'm on like 1,000 milligrams twice a day. I could probably go down to 500 and without any negative effect.
Well, speak to your doctor first.
Yeah, of course. But
yeah, remember how people were like, I was telling you, like people were like, oh, you don't have a family doctor. You can't find it. You can't go to the doctor you want. I have a family doctor, and I see or speak to her because we do phone call visits. That's how I prefer it. Once every 3 months. And if I want it, I could speak to her once a month. And that's my family doctor. I also have a different doctor for something else. Who again I speak to once every 3 months. Again, not a problem. I recently went through a cancer scare. I don't have cancer.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. I sort of kept that on the down low until I found out,
Mm.
where I went in and I had some exploratory surgery. Again, I didn't have to sell a car or a kidney or my house. If I had had it, they would have caught it quickly and early, you know, but I don't. So I've got peace of mind. And if I had had it, like I'm only 51, they probably could have treated it in like the early stages. So there'd have the government would have spent less money and did spend less money, even though they found nothing. Because if they had found something in the early stages, treating it early, you know, that whole like ounce of cure is worth a pound of ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's just so much more efficient here as well.
Hmm.
Anyway,
The let's check in something here.
I'm still here.
So so for any Brits that happen to be watching, I weigh 33 stone.
Okay.
That's almost as bad as your
Well,
freedom
I mean, honestly, that's a lot of
measurements.
rocks, Joe.
Well, so what's that, Raven? I didn't catch it.
I said that's a lot of rocks.
That's a lot of rocks. And what did you say, Christy?
It's a lot
Because
of
both of you were talking at the same time.
I said that's the whole measurement with stones is almost as bad as measuring things in freedom measurements.
Freedom measurements. That's funny.
Yeah,
So
the
I saw
metric
there was a
system
post
rocks.
about
Actually, most of the world uses
Yeah.
uses the metric system. The SI and metric are not 100% the same. There's more. They're largely the same. There are a few exceptions.
I think there's only 2 countries that officially use your method, and the other one I can't even
Well-
remember the name
well,
of the
the Brits-
country.
The Brits kind of do a hybrid because they still use miles on their road signs. They still talk about people's weight in pounds. So
Well-
they're kind of in the middle.
Depending on what generation you are here in Canada, we sort of do that as well because I think I was in around grade 4 or 5 when we did the switch over. So like when I tell people my height, I do it in feet and inches. I do my weight in pounds, but I can tell you it in the metric system. Like I'm 177.8 centimeters tall. But I'm also 5'10".
Right.
So I have a concept of how far a mile is. Like if I were to walk it, I could say that was a mile. But I prefer the metric system. It's so much easier. Dividing by 10 instead of 12, or like, what is it? 37.6 in ounces and
See, here's the thing. The whole conversion stuff. Basically, what I found is that whatever units are appropriate, that's what you use. So, like, if you're measuring in ounces, like, you don't need to convert to anything else. If you're just like, I've never seen anybody like you used to say if you're using in metric, you're using milliliters, right? No one ever, you either do it in milliliters or you're going to do it in liters. No one uses centiliters or deciliters. They exist, but no one cares.
Right.
So they're kind of, it's kind of irrelevant. You pick one based on the scope of what you're doing. So if you're doing like weights, you're using large weights, it's kilograms, right? Or but I've never heard anyone talk about decagrams or centigrams. No one does that.
But you know what's really cool is that a liter of water is 1 kilogram in weight.
Close. It's very close.
It's close enough.
Yeah. Well, just like the whole pints of pound the world around, right? It's actually slightly more than a pound, but it's real close. But the funny thing is though, when it comes to temperature,
apparently there's some kind of a space rock out there.
A lot of people think that
Hang on.
Fahrenheit is this old system, and then metric came along. Opposite. when metric was first developed, when centigrade was first developed, you actually had a water thermometer, but of course water freezes. So at the freezing point, so the Dr. Fahrenheit said, well, he wanted something that was based off of a brine so that it wouldn't freeze, that you could measure below the freezing point of water. So it's actually like 20 years newer than centigrade.
Oh, really? I think Raven had something to say, but then she left.
Hmm.
So when she comes back, because she's lagging,
Yeah.
like say, go ahead to her, you know, like
Sure.
something about a meteorite, and I'm interested in knowing what she was talking.
Yeah. Me too. But like, see, now in my job, being an engineer, I end up encountering both sets of units. I use metric, I use imperial, and what kind of happens, like, for temperature, for instance, if it's something that's ambient temperature and it doesn't really go over like 100 Fahrenheit, most places will use Fahrenheit. But if you're going high temperature, something where things are like 400 centigrade, 500, 600, 700 centigrade, you wouldn't use Fahrenheit, you'd use centigrade. So I have both in my head, and I can generally do the conversions in my head because I have to. I get used to it.
Well, because of your trade, for sure. But
Right.
as someone who's not in your trade, a good reminder for the average person, if they're traveling between, countries, is just sort of a general rule. If it's 16 degrees here, it's 61 degrees there. So
Right.
switch that. And also 82 and 28. So if you keep those two numbers, 61 and 82 in mind, and can switch them, you get like a general idea of like what the temperature is going to be
Right.
somewhere else. So say I was an American and someone said it's 16 in Canada. Well, I'm going to wear a sweater.
Right.
As opposed to someone who has no idea and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting a parka.
Yeah, well, see, I always remember 20 is 68, but I just say 70 for simplicity, and 10 is 50.
Yeah. Oh, Raven, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say that there was, and this is like such a stupid thing, but that there's some space rock out there that they measured and said it's about the size of a Dr. Pepper can. And it's just like, that's the US. We'll use anything other than the metric system.
Yeah. It's this many football fields. It's this many bald egos.
So I'm
Well-
guessing now there's just not much of a lag anymore.
Not bad. It's better. It improves.
I'm gonna
That
drop
still-
it out because I'm
Did you see that?
tired. And I want to do this again soon though. And maybe if we did it on TikTok live, it wouldn't be laggy. And that's a suggestion. If we do it on here, whatever you do it, please invite me again. I had a hoot. And just a reminder, CC22 is Caitlin Clark, number 22 of the Fever. They're starting up again in November. Or May, sorry. I never thought I'd say I love the WNBA, but I love the WNBA. All right.
Nice.
And if you want to watch a fantastic team, the Fever were great last year. They're going to be even better this year because they've got Thomas. They've got Sophie coming onto the team, and she's an enforcer. They've got some great defense players coming on. And, of course, Caitlin Clark, A.B. Hall, and is it Mitchell? Great players that were already on the team. They're going to go all the way. Anyway, good night.
Well, before you go,
Yeah.
So what would be the best time to come up and visit? Since I understand why you don't want to come here, so
Yeah.
that means I got to go see you.
Yeah, Joe was very kind to invite me down again to the States. And the only reason I had to decline is because I'm not in any way financially supporting America. No offense. I even gave up Coca-Cola, the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and I quit H. But I've done it. And let's see. Like, it depends on the weather. And I'd say come to my house for a bit, but I think it would actually be better if we stayed in Toronto because there's so
Yeah.
much more to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And a lot less travel for me because I can just take a flight. I can get my
Yeah, and
direct
there's,
flight
I
from New
mean,
York to Toronto.
I love it around my house, but it's very boring. I live on 26 acres of trees.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's beautiful, but there's nothing to do up here unless you like
Yeah.
camping. And
Yeah.
you can get tired of that really quick.
Running
do it
naked through the woods.
And you could camp anywhere, but Toronto's unique. I'd say in the summertime, but not at the height of summer, like so not August because that's too hot. So June or July,
Okay.
maybe even before June, like May. No, June or July.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll probably shoot for June because July. Yeah, I'll probably shoot for June.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, guys. Night, everyone. Night, guys. Thanks for having me, Raven. Bye.
Beach was too hot for a Canadian. Well, that's like too cold for Hawaiian. I remember years ago I had a startup in Hawaii, and then I had to call a few months later. I had to call the plant, and it was like in the upper 30s, low 40s around here. And I called down to talk to the person at the plant, and I said, "What's the weather like?" He said, "Oh, it's so cold. I got my winter jacket on." It was a windbreaker, and it was like 63 Fahrenheit outside. I'm like, "Shut up." Just shut up. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm like really disappointed in the amount of lag. Apparently there's still a little bit of lag. Um, I had no idea what's going on or why it's so bad.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm really annoyed.
Birthing Chud, did you always go
well.
by that name?
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna ask the
Anuki.
same thing. Like, I mean, what would we? How would we know you? What would we know you by? It was funny, Joe. Peach just showed me. She went back on the feed and she showed me what it looks like from the people watching. Um, when you guys are talking and I'm talking over you, and the
Hmm.
thing is, the things that I was saying that's going over you, I had said way before you guys started
Oh,
talking on here. So it's like
oh
for
wow.
some reason the lag is like really bad.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, especially since you're the host, that it's
Like
kind
every
of
time there's
strange.
a stop. Right. I mean, I'm like, and so every time there's like a break in the conversation, I start talking. And then all of a sudden you or Christine start talking over me. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, man, I can't even get a word in edgewise. And it
Hmm.
turns out for the viewer, it's the other way around.
Hmm.
And it's really annoying.
That is annoying.
It is annoying. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's strange.
So
Yeah, especially like
did
you said, you got a new computer,
did
so it shouldn't be a problem.
it shouldn't be. Nope. No, it's just a random troll back in those times. Okay.
Cool, cool. Yeah, there was somebody actually
Now
I
I'm
mentioned
guessing
that.
back in those times it wasn't. See, just did it again. It just did it again. I was like in the middle of saying something.
Yeah,
So
and I was
I
like
don't know
well into my
what's.
sentence by the time I heard your voice.
It did it again. I don't know what's wrong with this. Hmm.
I'm being quiet so you can talk.
Strange. Yeah, I'm just at this point just trying to figure out why it's doing it though.
Hmm.
It makes viewing live streams impossible.
Yeah. Um, I'm just wondering, like,
Right? There was a good almost several more than several seconds between when I stopped speaking and you said yeah. That's a pretty sizable lag. So fucking weird.
okay, so say anything, just like a one syllable thing. When I hear it, I will say it back to you, and I want to see. And then when you hear me, you say it back to me, and I just want to see how. So that's something that if everything was working really quick, well, I would be almost instant. It would be like boom, boom, boom. I just want to see how bad the lag is. So if you say, and then I go, and then you go. I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear anything.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have anything else going on in the background that would be using?
Did you hear me say Domino's?
No.
Why? See, that's fucked up.
Okay. Since the voice isn't working, try it. Just pop your hand up and down, and I'll do the same thing, and then you do the same thing. You froze. Yeah, your video froze. That's
Yeah.
weird.
There is nothing that should be stopping this. I have no idea what's going on. Could it be internet?
Slowing it down.
No, but I mean it's optimum.
Are you wired or wireless?
Wireless.
Now that time you came back to me very quickly because I said I asked a question and you answered very quickly.
Well, I mean, I don't know like how much like there was zero space in between. I don't know.
Yeah, I still think if your camera is plugged into that USB hub, I'm dubious of that thing. Don't worry about typing for a second.
No.
Are you directly in?
The camera is plugged into the computer.
Oh, okay.
While we were talking earlier, one of the times that I kind of froze and went off screen, I went and I swapped everything. And that the camera is plugged directly into the computer.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know.
Weird.
So I wanted to talk. One of the things I wanted to talk about was our plans for the future. But
Well, I mean, if you want to talk, and I'll just listen, and then let me know when you're done. I'll.
a wild peach appears. Oh, baby, baby.
Oh, is it all the way?
What?
Right.
No, the router's over there. It's behind the TV. But you're not gonna have a long enough wire. It's not gonna reach this.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all right. It's kind of hard to, you know.
Where is your router located? Is it anywhere near your computer?
Yeah, it's about 10 feet away. It's right there.
I would try, and you may not be able to do it right now, but I would try going wired. I always go wired if I can help it.
Yeah, we're actually Peach is right here running a wire.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be long enough though. Maybe.
While Peach is doing that.
Oh.
So I just wanted, one of the things that I'm
Yeah.
concerned a lot about is you know, what the feeling that Nadia expressed, you know, not ever wanting to come here again. And I'm like, I just feel like Trump has done so much damage that I don't see it being repaired in our lifetime, if ever. And that makes me very sad because, you know, I think that, you know, it's so hard to comprehend that,
My
you
fault.
know, decades of
Sorry.
everything being
need-
torn apart in a
I need
matter
light.
of weeks.
Oh, crap.
What's this?
Orange juice up here.
Your orange?
Yeah. You can't couple these together because that's not going to reach. It's not going to reach.
Damn.
I gotta find the plug for this, and I can't see. It's too dark. Sorry, guys. This sucks.
So, yeah, so I guess if you get like a 15
Yeah.
footer, you might be able to.
It's not over here, right?
I-
On the other side.
Yeah, it's on. the-
Yeah, it's probably my phone, the flashlight. And it's not going to reach the other side. Actually, it's not even on the other side. Where is it? There's no Ethernet.
So it would be the dock. But
What
you
dock?
unplug the port. The USB port.
The hub?
Yeah, whatever you call it, it's a dock.
Yes, I didn't unplug it.
You didn't unplug it?
No.
So that has the USB.
Does that have Ethernet? Has an Ethernet
Do you want to
port?
touch with it and I'm going to get up, bro? Not on the computer. But the hub has.
Yeah.
So it's plugged in, right? So do you want to
So you may need
change it?
to
Okay, but is the,
you may need to temporarily disable the Wi-Fi
Hang on one
on
second.
your laptop just to make it switch.
yeah. Maybe. Where's the mouse?
Keep talking, Joe.
I was watching the top of Peach's head. Yeah. So let me see.
Trying to
Phil
hide.
says, I've been trying to install RetroPie since Raven started. Still installing. Linux is absolutely Linux is useless. I mean, still better than Windows. So Nadia, where are you from originally? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, there's definitely a sense of loss because I mean, you know, because I again I watch a lot of channels that keep up on this stuff, and basically by Trump's kind of all the chaos, it created a situation where other countries can't depend on us. If something, if we have an alliance in place or a trade deal in place, if the president can come along and just rip it up, what good is it? What's the value of it? Tommy says hi to Peach.
What? It's just gonna.
Oh, you were in New York City till recently? Oh, yeah, because you're not far from. I mean, I could see Manhattan from here.
There we go.
And Peach and Raven are about an hour from me. So you switched over? No?
Yeah. It seems like it's better though.
But yeah, so you have the cable plugged in? Like I said, you may need to disable the Wi-Fi temporarily so it'll switch and use
Wasn't
the
computer wasn't recognizing it wasn't even picking it up. It wasn't registering that it was
okay.
plugged in.
Gotcha.
So we couldn't switch anything over because it wasn't showing it. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
it seems
I'm really
probably
frustrated.
it's xenophobia birthing chud. I mean, that's the thing. And then understand, we live in a connected world, a world that America, had a big part in creating to make it this global thing. Obviously not alone, but with partners around the world. And you can't go, we can't go back. It's not ever going to work. So it just makes no sense. They're anti-NATO, they're anti-UN. Like, we helped create these things for our own benefit. But I really think it comes down
Described
to
as the indispensable nation.
Yep.
We've been described as the indispensable nation for some time, and one of the reasons for that is just the size of the economy is so big that if we ever tried to pull out of a global market and be like completely isolationist, pretty much every other country on earth would fall like dominoes.
Yeah.
I mean, us too. We would be the first one to go, but I mean, this economies would crash like dominoes around the planet. And I mean, we're kind of seeing the threat of that now. The more Trump isolates us, the more he pulls back from the world and threatens the world order that has existed for the last, 80 years. Yeah, there's a real threat of countries just like losing everything,
Yes.
not just us.
And to your question, birthing chud, about even to go back to the 1700s. Well, this is the reason why. Again, I look at both extremes. I look at the right wing extreme and the left wing extreme, and like the reason why. And I'm not talking about socialism per se. I'm talking about actual communism. The reason why it doesn't scale is because communism is an idea born out of. It was basically a reaction to the Industrial Revolution. So you had agrarian societies that were reacting to the displacement caused by industrialization. And so the idea was to kind of go back to the whole collective farm and all this kind of stuff. But those days are gone, man. Like that, it used to be like 80% of the population was devoted to agriculture. Now it's 2%. And if it wasn't for all the wasted food, where there's more than enough food to feed everybody quite well. So that's why, one friend, I don't know if you know Jack Burchill. Yeah, Jack used to be in the thing. Jack. And Jack used to be a communist, and Jack realized like it doesn't scale. Like in the modern world, it doesn't scale. It doesn't work anymore. If it could, and it doesn't work on a small scale, maybe, but it's not something you could have as like a global thing. And so it's just like laissez-faire capitalism doesn't work in an interconnected world. You can't live in a world where whoever gets there first gets to use all the resources on a planet of 8 billion people. It just doesn't work.
A mixed system is the best. So I mean, you kind of need the socialist side of things to kind of rein in capitalistic tendencies,
Yeah.
and to maintain a fair and level playing field.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I tend to even avoid the terms, because they're kind of loaded. People have biases about them, wherever they're coming from. So I tend to talk about, market economies versus planned economies, collectivism versus individualism. And look, individual enterprise has produced, in the aggregate, has produced more than complete collectivism. However, unregulated collectivism concentrates all that in a very small number of hands, and that's not even good for those systems. I've actually been planning to do a stream or a video about, I want to call, capitalists are ruining capitalism. Because in a market economy is dependent on the free flow of money and the consumer buying stuff. And if the consumer class has no money, the things that make a market economy work to the degree they do stops working. And collectivism is, like I said, we were talking before, having the government take the place of the insurance company makes a lot of sense. because now you have the purchasing power of, in our case, 335 million people, as opposed to my company with 10 and some other company with 80 and another company with 500. And then a whole bunch of people with nothing. And that's still really true. I mean, these people that are concerned that China is going to invade us, I'm like, do you have any idea the logistics required to launch an invasion force of a couple million and maintain them with supplies across a hostile ocean where you have no allies to help you to do that? It's like, and think of how long it took the United States and Britain and Australia and New Zealand and French East Asia Force and and China to take out Japan, because the logistics of moving all that against Japan, who was basically defending defending the territory that they had captured plus their home islands, and they had a much shorter supply chain. It would take way more ships than China has or could even build in any kind of time frame. I was being quiet so you could talk.
I mean, I did, that was, we'll talk about the European theater and the whole Soviet U.S. thing. I mean, it's been a chessboard for a long time. A lot of Europe, a lot of Africa, a lot of the Middle East. It's one of the most abused pieces in that chess game has been Afghanistan. I mean, yeah, both Russia, the Soviets, and the U.S. We earned, I guess, is a good word for it, earned a lot of ill will across the world because of that chess game. I mean, it's nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm just
Always been
typing in.
ridiculous, and every administration we've ever had is playing that game.
Yeah, basically, I was just replying to Nadia. Is like, for China to do it now, it would take over 1,200 military cargo ships, not counting the support ships, all the fuel, the fuelers, the oilers, the maintenance ships, the landing ships, and then a fleet of about twice what they have now in order to support it. They could not do it now, and we couldn't do it either in the other direction. And so it's not the only, if there's a war with China, it's going to be over Taiwan. That's the reality of it. It took the U.S. several years to build up a force that was able to occupy the various islands, basically do the island campaign, to occupy the various islands in the Pacific, to build a supply chain that they could be maintained in order to attack the home islands. Right, but the thing is, they're not going to do that. Like, you can't do that in secret. Not like the old days. Like, we would know, and we could do the same thing. Yeah. There's not going to be any.
I mean, it's true though that the Chinese did it again. They did it again. I mean, yeah, it's true. Like, because there's all these videos, you see them online all the time, showing about, look at China, the Chinese workforce or the Chinese people did, in like a day, they built this entire city in 5 hours. Yeah, it is true that their production capacity is like off the charts. But yeah, Joe is right. We would still know about it while they're doing it. It's not like they could surprise us with it.
Right. And even there, a lot of what people have said has been kind of exaggerated. I was watching a video the other day where somebody was pointing out, like, Westerners that go to China and do these videos, and it's like you could tell they're reading off a script because they all say literally like word for word the exact same thing. So it's like it's just propaganda. But and the thing is, like right now, the Chinese surface fleet is about the same size as the American surface fleet, as far as in terms of combatants. But the problem for the Chinese is that they're not just facing the U.S. surface fleet; they're facing the Japanese surface fleet, the South Korean surface fleet, the Australian surface fleet. The British East Asia holdings aren't that much, but there's some. The French have a few ships. The Germans have a few ships out there. So when you add Taiwan actually has a navy too. So when you add all it up, China's navy is outnumbered. Well, the problem with the tariffs is that you can't protect an industry that you don't have anymore.
Yeah. It's like, washing machine tariffs, like how badly, he did that. I mean, he put a tariffs on washing machines, and so the price of washing machines went up. But then so did the price of dryers because they're bought as sets.
Right.
But the tariff wasn't on that, so the American consumer was getting screwed on both machines.
Right. Right.
People,
And
we don't have much of a washing machine or appliance industry in this country anymore. So it's not like, it protected American jobs. It was a complete system, which is what he's done now.
right.
What do you got?
Well, it's just like steel, right? Basically, American bulk steel died in the 80s because first the Japanese beat us, but then the Japanese success against the U.S. actually defeated themselves because, of course, Japan doesn't have much in the way of raw ore. They get the ore from us, but South Korea has their own source of ore. So the South Koreans took over the bulk steel market. We can't compete with South Korea on bulk steel. So all the big plants died off. What we had left are special. We turned from bulk steel to specialty steel, and we rule in specialty steel. But the problem is you don't build most things out of specialty steel. You build them out of bulk steel. So charging, and it would take at least a decade to start to rebuild of a capacity of worth a damn to start doing bulk steel again. And again, we wouldn't be competitive anyway. Even and so it wouldn't really help. And all it's going to do is basically be a tax on Americans to make a product that is not economically viable for us in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, Chud. Chud. I'm calling you Chud. So yeah, there's no plan. There's nothing that goes with it. There's no plans. There's no policies. There's nothing. It's just they're like some kind of a punishment. The word is right there. I can't get it, but it's like these these punishments that are being handed out to countries that he is mad at, which is pretty much everybody except for Russia, in order to punish them. But it will do absolutely nothing to help American workers, American taxpayers, American consumers, American manufacturing and industry. It does absolutely nothing because there's no plans or policies that accompany these tariffs. It's just these punitive, there you go, that's the word, these punitive tariffs that they're just doling out like it's like they're Pez. I don't know.
Yeah. And he still doesn't seem to understand that the tariffs are paid by American consumers because he's telling companies, oh, move to the United States, no tariffs. I'm like, well, if their raw materials come from other places, they're still going to be paying tariffs because there's tariffs on all the raw materials.
So in the late 80s, I worked for it was a retail store. It was called Jamesway. It's a lot like Walmart, except it wasn't nearly as big. It was a regional store, Jamesway. And I worked in the electronics department. We sold stereos and televisions and that kind of stuff. And while I was working there, Zenith, which was the last American manufacturer of televisions, stopped making their TVs in the US.
Right.
And that was in like 88, 89. I don't know if there are any new television manufacturers in the States or not. I don't think there is, but that was in the 80s. That was, 35 years ago. That Zenith switched, I think, to Mexico to build their TVs.
Yeah.
And I mean, and
Well,
Joe,
I
Joe
just-
would
I
know
just
because, Joe's Mexican.
I just looked all the manufacturing of LCDs in the USA. It's all for industrial. So I have vendors that make build LCDs in the USA, but it's all specialty stuff. It's all low volume, high cost stuff for industrial purposes. So it's not, you wouldn't buy, the average person wouldn't buy it because it would cost crazy money compared to, a Sharp or a Toshiba or whatever else you could get, Sony, LG, I'm just checking. Looks like maybe Sharp is it.
It's like the late 80s.
Right.
So it's just like, so what is it that we are manufacturing at this point? Potato chips? I mean, shit, that was Ross Perot's thing, right? We got to go from making potato chips to microchips.
Yeah. Right.
And
And Bush's labor secretary said that he didn't care whether we build microchips or potato chips, which is the dumbest fucking thing anyone ever said in that role. Sharp still makes. Oh, their main manufacturing is in Japan. They do manufacture and sell LCDs in the United States. So that's one, and it's a Japanese company. So the money's going out of the country anyway.
Bombs and guns, and there's a reason for that outside of see, that's more of a House of Representatives thing. So representatives, they get elected into office many times on promises of keeping jobs in local communities. And so what they do is the military will have these huge budgets to have like these weapons built. So what they'll do is in one district, they'll concentrate on building just that one piece of a larger unit, right? So like maybe the buttstock of a rifle is built in this one town. Well, the firing pin might be built in another place in another state, and the representatives will run on making sure that those jobs stay there. So the military ends up spending tons and tons of money to keep people employed all across the country, and the same people that are in office keep their jobs year in and year out by promising that they'll continue to spend the military's money.
Yeah, the F-35 program.
It's a scam.
The F-35 fighter program involves parts from every single state. All 50 states have some part of the manufacturing of the F-35.
It's a scam. It's a fucking scam. It's a scam to keep certain people in office. Somebody who's not going to be an actual like populist, somebody who is going to play the game. These are rules that are set out by the manufacturers of the products, the military, and the representatives themselves. It's all rigged. It's all rigged.
Well, and
that's why it's so hard for newcomers to break in.
Well, and this is the thing, like the M1 tank, the military said a decade ago, we don't need it anymore. We have enough M1 tanks that if all the ones that are in active service got destroyed, and we have enough in storage to replace all of them and have 50% more, we can lose 50% more and then still be able to field all of them. And so now the excuse there is that, well, there's only one plant. It's the plant in Lima, Ohio that produces them. And if they stop buying them, that plant would shut down and then we'd have no more tank production. So we just keep buying more. Now we could have them refit the older ones and bring them up to the standard of the new one, which would be more effective. But we don't do that. We just keep buying more.
Goddamn Podcast. Is that you, Coctopus, or somebody else?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Inquiring minds need to know.
Not really, Chud. Drones have their own place, and fighters have their own place. They're they kind of supplement one another. So, it is Coctopus. Cool. Haven't seen him in ages.
Was on the goddamn podcast a few weeks ago. And it was cool. And here's the reason why I don't go on all that much anymore. Why I kind of left when I did. And I felt bad about it. But my voice. That's actually the reason. Hang on, Coctopus, hang on. So yeah, it's my voice. They used to have the video like we have, right? But there was a falling out on the whole thing, whatever, without getting into details or sounding like I'm talking trash about anybody because I'm not. But there's a bit of a falling out with like production, and they stopped doing the video. And so they just have the main video of the videos that they're talking about, like Shanny or whatever, and then it's just still shots of people.
Hmm.
Okay. Because of my voice, when I speak, people are going to be like, "Hey, who's that dude?"
Hmm.
And I don't want to have to go through constantly, I'm not a dude.
Gotcha. I
So
understand.
it became uncomfortable. So
That makes sense.
I kind of, I stepped away, and I had a lot of fun doing the show, but it became hard to do it. Yeah. And I mean, it's nobody's fault but my voice, my fucking voice. So
Now, is there any kind of care they can do for that? Anything they can?
there is a surgery that isn't covered by insurance.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have a high enough success rate to make me comfortable with it.
Gotcha.
I know Sierra has had it. I'm pretty sure Sierra has had it. I don't know if Autumn has had it. It was just somebody me anymore. Autumn blocked me. Um, I have no idea why. She accused me of saying something self-serving that really upset her, and that's it. She's done with me. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking.
Yeah.
So whatever. I miss her though, but still, whatever. But
I
anyway,
don't.
Fair.
Well, the thing is, what bothered me about it was that, and I told this to her before I blocked her, is that I was kind of like, when everybody turned on you, Raven was there, I was there, Mike was there. We were the only ones
Yeah.
who even after all the agita we had beforehand, we were there for you. And then now that you feel like, well, you've got your own group now, you don't need us. And so when she turned on you, I'm like, yeah, that's real shitty.
I mean, I don't know how many nights I spent on the phone on doing, hello. Phone calls, video phone calls. Why am I drawing a blank? I don't know. Hours and hours with her. She's all drunk and upset because, her marriage falling apart and having to sell their second house and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, I stayed up with her, late at night. And then all of a sudden I was like, well,
Yeah.
fine. I mean, what are you going to do? Fuck it.
Yeah. And that's something, ingratitude is something that because like I said, you did a lot for her.
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to oversell. I mean, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to her about the difficulties of transition. Um, you know, so feminizing Dr. Dan stuff is maybe more popular, I think, unjustly. Yeah. I was gonna say, going back to what we were talking about, I did meet a woman, and it was a trans event thing. And I met this woman who had the surgery, and she couldn't speak. All she could do is a whisper.
Ooh.
And that's it. That's her voice now. And that scared the shit out of me. I'm not doing that. So,
Yeah,
but there is
no.
also, I could also train my voice. It's just hard. It's really hard, and it takes time. Anybody who can do that successfully, more
Mike.
power to you. Michael, hello. It's just hard. So,
Yeah, I can imagine.
and I wanted to talk to Tommy real quick. I wanted to say something earlier, but then it seemed like he was gone. I wasn't sure if he was there or not. But so we're looking to possibly do the RV life. And I know that Tommy either has or had an RV, and I was just wanted to ask him about it. I don't know if he's willing to type about it. Agent of Doubt. Sit your butt down.
Okay, here I go. Can you hear me
What
okay?
is that, coffee?
You can hear me
Is
okay?
that coffee you
Yeah.
got there?
Yeah, this is coffee.
Nice. So what does that mean exactly, though? Does that mean that you are an expert at debating liberals, or you're a liberal that's an expert at debating? I like this. I like that. Okay.
See, so many people will ask that I actually put the definition on the back.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, what gets me now is that the right wing is so obsessed with trans people, and like every single time, like who was it? Was it J-Lo? Somebody famous, and their child is non-binary, and they were dressed in the clothing is like what we would generally associate with males, right? And so they're like, how are they? Why are they dressed like a dude? I'm like, it's clothing, you fucking idiots! Like what?
It's
It's fucking clothing. Like get over yourself. And this is a minor. Why are you like freaking the fuck out over what a child, how they dress?
Their biggest issue isn't so much with trans people. The biggest issue is with trans women. And I don't know. I think it's because we have just amazing tits and it makes them uncomfortable.
Probably. Well, it's just like the way they're always freaked out about, gay men. I'm like, it's like you're afraid that you're too attracted to them. That's what it really is, Because what do they say? Like every time there's a Republican convention, that Grindr and all the
Red boy.
Red boy, all these things go through the roof.
It's true.
And it's like, and it's a sad thought. Like if you think about it, like how many, and look, like not every homophobe is or not every conservative is a closet homophobe, but there seems to be an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you wonder, like if they're like overcompensating because like I remember I was talking to somebody about Ted Haggard, and I'm like, what hell it must be to be gay and then live in an environment where people told you since birth that being gay is like the worst thing you could possibly be. And so of course you have to tamp that part of yourself down and hide it. And of course what do they usually do, right? They usually are the most adamant anti-gay people because they're trying to cover for who they are. They're trying to deny who they are, and they're trying to cover and protect themselves. And I'm like, that's got to be like an abysmal existence.
So my channel name is actually very similar to that because growing up, my early years in evangelical Christian church, I was told that the greatest sin is to doubt the existence of God.
Right.
And I just started thinking at a very young age. And, I consider myself an atheist from like age 7, but before that, I was buying into it. But then I just started thinking, why are you all flopping on the ground like a fish? Like, he's everything that's a miracle here seems to be something that you can just act.
Right.
You know, there's no like actual magic. It's just like performances, you know?
Right.
And so like I was doubting at a very young age, and I thought that actually it's a good thing to doubt, or else people will keep on pulling the wool over your eyes.
Mm.
And so I became a proponent of
that
critical
doubt.
thinking, right?
Well, the funny part is even when I was still a believer, or at least nominally a believer anyway, I used to like to challenge people who were like, you know, like fundamentalists, because and they were and a lot of them, they really didn't like that. And I would say, well, look, if somebody challenges your beliefs and you run with that, right, one of two things is going to happen, or one of three things really. One is if what you believe is correct or stands up to scrutiny, well, then that's just going to strengthen your belief because it got challenged and you defended it. Or you find out your belief wasn't based on anything good and you'll change it. Or you may come to the conclusion that you don't have enough information to make up your mind yet. And all three of those are okay. And so I used to love to, I remember this woman I had we were kind of fuck buddies. And so I remember one time I went over to see her, and she had forgotten that she was supposed to host the Bible study because she was part of the evangelical church. And so she's like, well, you could go home or you could sit around and, for an hour and listen to the Bible study people, and then we could fuck afterward. I'm like, well, you know what I did. So the whole time I was just like challenge, because I came out of Catholicism, which is a totally different kind of view of things.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I just wanted to say, Coctopus, if you're still here, if there's a way for me to send a link to you, for you to come on, if you want to come on, I'll do that. Want to join us?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I don't even know if you're still watching. I don't know. I don't know if you want to come on. I don't know. It might take a half an hour just for my words to get to you. I have no idea anymore. Tonight has been a complete and total clusterfuck. So, but anyway, the invite is there.
I said all that just to say that I identify with, people who keep on getting told that their identity is the thing that is to be hated, while having to still have friends in these groups. Because I grew up in towns where there were just Christian youth groups to hang out at. Like the sleepovers were church lock-ins, right? And so I did get accepted as part of the group, per se, but there were some things that I was excluded from because I was open about not believing. From probably age 14 on in those youth groups, I would be like, I'm not buying all this stuff. And so there's stuff that you just don't get to play the reindeer games with. But as for the topic of Republicans and hating what's going on in their own family, so there's Elon, right? This is a long walk here, okay? Elon's getting different women pregnant, right? After Grimes, he's gotten other women pregnant, right? And he has been using, we thought, is this guy's pullout game really bad? Does he really want to split his fortune 15 different ways? No, it's not pullout game. He's using IVF to get these women pregnant, right? So then the thought was, does this guy have a defective penile implant? Did he have a botched surgery down there, right? So and this rumor went across the internet for a week. But I think what's going on is way more evil. And it has more to do with the whole, Nazi salute thing and all that, because it's eugenics. He's selecting for a certain type of person when he's using IVF. And I think I figured out which type, because there's this TikTok account of his daughter who is trans, right? And her name is Vivian, and she's got a wonderful account. I follow it, right? I think he is so just in his emotions about the fact that his own daughter exists and isn't his son that he is now selecting for male embryos to put into all these women. And sure enough, like they're all popping out boys, right?
Mm.
And it's not too far from just selecting for male traits in your kids to go like eugenics. Like if you're already Nazi saluting, right? Like this is he's picking males for heirs, right? And it all comes back to him just feeling butthurt that his kid ended up trans.
And it's good. It's a good point because I mean, if his equipment was working, why would he be doing IVF all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm saying it's a great story to say that he has problems down there, right? I love that rumor for him, but the truth looks like it's even more evil that he's just a Nazi eugenicist prick, and he hates women.
Yeah, well, I can definitely see that. And that's who's he court? He courts dude bros, right? That's why one of my favorite nicknames for the Cybertruck is the incel Camino.
Yeah. Look at all of the cyber twats that he has on the Doge team, right? Those young men. There's no DEI in his hiring for Doge. There's a specific type he's looking for. Right. Look at all of the list of people that have come out. Very heavy on the Y chromosome.
Yeah.
Dude hates women, and that's so much worse than his dick doesn't work.
Mm. Oh yeah. Well, I call them collectively, them and the MRAs and the MGTOW and TFL and all of the collectively they are the He-Man Woman Haters Club.
Yes.
And anybody who I know Raven got the reference. You probably did too, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to. So I don't know how old the person was, but I mentioned that, and then someone says, "Don't sully He-Man." Like, no, this has nothing to do with the He-Man character. And I actually linked in a video from Little Rascals. I guess there was 2 episodes actually where they do the He-Man and Woman Haters Club. I'd forgotten that. But it's and the other thing, I mentioned this before on Facebook. Literally every single video that I've seen on Facebook and on YouTube for that matter, where there's a woman comic, there's always some disgusting misogynistic bullshit in the comments, how women are funny, and if she's modestly attractive or better, then the comments are about that. If she's not, then there's comments about that, and if a woman makes a sex joke, it's like, oh, another female comic making a sex joke. I'm like, well, you tell me you're hetero, and yet you're pissed off about women talking about sex. Like you're telling on yourself in so many ways.
Yeah. There's this phrase that has been said about Trump that every accusation is an admission. Right. And that goes to the whole Grindr thing when the RNC is in town. They hate gay people, and yet they're on that app. Right. Every accusation is an admission. So there's one that does not have to do with sex or trans or anything that I've figured out. It's all economic policy, but it is every accusation is an admission. Right. So Biden spending billions of dollars to help Ukraine, right? Sending all these aid packages, trying to, and some of them, the last ones out the door actually got chopped off at the end because Trump got into office, right? But he's taking our tax dollars, sending them overseas, and at least half the country doesn't like it, right? When this happens, there's inflation when he's printing dollars that don't exist, right, and sending them overseas. There's that inflation, and we will hear from the libertarian Republican style person that this is a backdoor tax on Americans. When inflation goes up and everything costs us more because of government actions, it's a backdoor tax on Americans, right? This is what I've figured out about these tariffs that Trump is doing. Okay. China getting the biggest tariff, right? Huge ass tariff, right? Russia, right next to them, right? By land, you can ship things very easily between China and Russia. If Trump puts a 200% tax on China and then a 10% tariff he puts on Russia, then all Russia has to do is buy a whole bunch of shit from China, stick made in Russia on it, and China will do that for you. They'll pre-put whatever country of origin you want on the sticker, right?
Right.
And then they can sell it to Americans at 150% of what the cost used to be, because you can't buy it from China at 200% if it's for sale from Russia at 150% of the previous price, right?
Right.
So what this does is when all the other countries have higher tariff rates than Russia, Russia can act as the middleman and just undercut the tariffed rate that we would get for any goods from any other country, making all of this money flow by the billions, even more than Biden ever sent to Ukraine, by the trillions. This money is going to flow through Russia into our corporations. The goods will go into our corporations, but half of the money for everything that we pay for will be going to Russia, which is going to support their war efforts.
Right.
This is a backdoor tax on Americans.
Right.
It's just a different style of it. And so what I'm saying is every accusation is an admission.
Right.
They were mad when, there was a backdoor tax, but then as soon as they get into office, they do a backdoor tax in order to help the side of the war that they want to help.
Right. And the irony of that is that most of what we were so-called sending to Ukraine was not sent in the form of cash. It was sent in credits that were being spent on U.S. goods. So it was actually U.S. subsidizing American goods and then sending the proceeds over to Ukraine. So the money actually never left the country.
And some of it was military supplies that then we have a need for more of them in our own country. So we start simulating our own country by replenishing our own stockpiles.
That's right. And a lot of what we gave or stuff that we were getting rid of anyway. Like I remember Canada gave 800,000 rockets to Ukraine that usually for like helicopter pods, gun pods and everything, that they were slated for destruction. And Canada was like, "Here, take it. We had to, it was going to cost us money to throw this away, so you just have it." And we were doing this, and we've been doing the same thing, because a rocket fuel doesn't last forever. Missile fuel doesn't last forever; it degrades. So you need to change out the stockpile periodically. But yeah, you're right. So basically, but they in their minds they were able to spin it because most people don't understand how this process works.
Yes. So we had this thing called the CHIPS Act, right? And it was basically a surgical tariff just on computer chips in order to make there be more manufacturing in the US.
Right.
Trump gets into office and he fucking kills that shit. The shit that was actually surgical and actually could have worked to bring some of that important industry back into America. And then he levels just ridiculous tariffs on every fucking thing in China, which does nothing but make them more connected to the rest of the world, supply the whole rest of the world with cheaper products because there's a surplus because we're not buying their shit.
Right.
And yeah, the rest of the world gets to have cheaper products, and we pay higher prices for our
Oh, and just to support what you're saying, he's now talking about an exemption for electronics again, so the 200, 104, 154% tariff won't apply to electronics.
Yeah.
Whereas the CHIPS Act was, and we do have some chip manufacturing in the U.S., not a ton, but we have some. And you're right, that was actually helping.
I think we just spent like 5 minutes at least talking about how stupid Trump is without bringing up sex or trans matters at all. Like there are things outside of these things that we usually talk about that are also reasons why Trump's a dipshit.
Yeah.
We can go back to our regularly scheduled programming now.
Oh, well, I said before, Mike, before you got on, I don't know if you were listening or not, but people often say, don't attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. And I said the difference with this administration, it's a unholy mixture of both. They're both incompetent and full of malice and have malicious intent.
The other country that's going to benefit from having a low tariff set on them or none is going to be Israel. And the problem with the reason why we lost this last election and Trump's in office is right there, both parties supporting Israel and colonialism, right? And part of the base of the Democratic Party not wanting to support colonialism, right? But now with Trump in office, we have three countries, Israel, Russia, and now America, because we want Greenland and Canada and all this. We got the three expansionist colonial countries in an evil axis. Right. And it's the flipping of US support in the Ukraine-Russia war that makes that all three of the colonial expansionist countries all working together.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And as much as I understood why people were upset with the administration about how they were handling the situation there, I'm like, if Trump wins, it's going to get worse. Please understand that. And people not wanting to accept that. See, and this is what pisses me off too about Americans, and people that, again, those people that stayed home, is that this kind of nihilistic idea that, well, bad or worse than bad doesn't matter. Like, yeah, because it's not happening to you, you dickhead. Like this is why I remember you had a bump in with Tracy, and over over people, the fact that, hey, if somebody has to spend 6 years, 8 years to get an education, even if they don't have to pay for it, that's still worth more than somebody who got 6 weeks of training and does their job. It's not an equal thing. And my thing was like, you're telling me that it doesn't matter whether 50,000 Palestinians die or 80,000 Palestinians die. Fuck you. It does matter to the 30,000 people that die and their families. Don't pretend that that doesn't matter. And if you think that, then you don't care about those people as much as you pretend you do.
Mm-hmm. I get the people who are going to vote those third parties no matter what, and I don't hold them accountable for this loss, because if you add up all of the left of the Democratic Party votes all together, they wouldn't have beaten Trump.
No, that's true.
Right. And so what I think that needs to be targeted just as a strategy is the non-voter.
Yes.
Right. A third of the whole country didn't vote for anyone. So there's that.
39%.
Yeah.
The biggest constituency was, I couldn't be arsed to go vote.
So all of the things that I was warned about when I was in atheist activism 15 years ago, about the Quiverful movement, about like the Seven Mountains Mandate and all that, they all became part of the Project 2025, right? This has had different names throughout history. I just saw a clip of J.D. Vance from a couple of years ago where he was saying that children who are American citizens should also have a vote, but their parents should be the ones who decide who they vote for,
Yeah.
right? At the same time, they're pushing this legislation where you have to have different forms of ID that prove that you're a citizen, and if your name doesn't match because you changed your name when you're married, you might have a problem registering. So, like, the only actual registered voter of that family unit might be the father. So the father gets to make the decision for the wife and the kids, who everyone's voting for. And
Well, that tracks with their ideology.
yeah, and I remember there were a few commercials. Julia Roberts made one where people were saying that women should, because it's all secrets in the ballot box, they should go in there, vote in person, and vote against what their husband was voting for, right? And that turned out to be not that big of a crowd, but I still see this really chilling progression that we're headed towards where, I wonder when enough people will wake up, and it's going to be them hurting their own kind, like disenfranchising women that used to be conservative, that maybe will do it, but it'll be way too late by then.
Well, this again, the reason why I'm so pissed at our side more than the Trump people wanted this, right? They I hate what they voted for, but they were voting for something and they got it. Now some of them aren't happy about it, but that's what they wanted. But the people who sat home, like, especially the people that are like, well, because they weren't excited by the candidate. I'm like, what excites me? Not living in a fucking fascist dictatorship. That fucking excites the ever-loving fuck out of me. That's all I need. Like, yes, it's nice to be inspired, but that's kid stuff. We live in the fucking real world. I'm a pragmatist, man. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I got two viable choices, and it sucks that there's only two viable choices, but that's reality, and I can do math.
Well, I'm going to say there's more than just two viable choices until you get to the general election, right? And if you're going to support a third party, you should probably be out campaigning right now and getting voters on your, like, don't wait till the primaries for those two big parties are already over and everything's kind of set in stone as to it's one or the other.
So I am actually ready to get out there and campaign to try to force Pete Buttigieg to run again.
Okay.
He's one of the few Democrats that are saying things that need to be said. Like he's recognizing the problem, and he's not afraid to say it. Like we got Hakeem Jeffries, just like, oh, what are we going to do? We just, we don't have the numbers. There's nothing we can do. We have no way to fight back. And it's just like, that, number one, that's not true. And number two, you can't keep leaning on a system and depending on a system to save you that doesn't exist anymore. That's number one. And number two is you have to recognize that when we were talking about this earlier, what used to be, right, the country that we were before Trump is done. That's over. That's over. And then so one of the things that Pete was saying was we can't go back. Like we can't get back what we've lost. And the reason we lost it is because it was broken to begin with. The system was broken. Otherwise, Trump would have never been elected. So we need to come up with something new because we can't get back what's no longer there. And it's like, thank you for saying that. Where the fuck is everybody else on the left?
Renew America.
Yeah, we can't go back to what was, but we can make something better. And the only way we can do that is to get rid of Trump. And
Trumpism.
what was that?
And Trumpism.
and Trumpism. Like one of the things because I had watched this interview with Jon Stewart and Pete Buttigieg, and one of the things that kind of struck me was Pete was in office before. He ran for president before. And he wasn't saying then the things that he's saying now. And when he ran for president and when he was in office, the systems that were in place then were broken then.
Mhm.
And he wasn't saying that shit then. He's saying it now. So, one of the things that, and Peach was just like, no fucking way is Trump a good thing. But could it be that it took Trump for people like Pete to say, yeah, the system was broken and we need to fix it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, did it really take somebody coming in with a sledgehammer for people to realize that the system's probably been broken for a good 30 years
How bad, and that it can get worse.
and that it can get worse? You know,
Yeah, I
because
mean-
it's been administration after administration after administration just doing the status quo, just keeping things going when the entire time the entire system has been completely fucked to begin with.
Well, and this is one issue I have. You know, Mike's talking about the third parties. My biggest beef with them is that all they ever do is run vanity candidates for president. That's what it is. It's vanity. Because even in the bizarro world where the third party candidate gets elected as president, which we know is not going to happen, but just pretended it could.
Okay.
They have no popular support in Congress, which means their agenda goes nowhere at all. Because you need. So what they should be doing
Yeah.
is, how come I'm not seeing them run for local elections, county elections, statewide elections? Build a base. They have to build a base, and it seems to me that these third party people, they want change, but they think that they can just flick a switch and get what they want without putting the work in. And that's why I love the line from Arthur, from Dudley Moore. John Gielgud says to Liza Minnelli, "Young lady, this is not a tie you can steal. This is a tie you're going to have to work for." And I feel the same way. It's like, you can't just flick a switch and get what you want. And the less popular your ideas are, the harder it's going to be to get them to become the standard. And you have to start at a grassroots level. Get people on your side. Get people in your state houses. Get people in Congress. And then once you've built up a base, because now people will say, oh, well, that party X, they got that person and this person, and hey, they have a few offices in my state, and they seem to, I like their ideas. But until that, it's vanity. It's nothing but vanity. Ralph Nader was a vanity candidate. Jill Stein's a vanity candidate, and also thinks he's a Russian operative. They're all vanity. And so I would like there to be a viable third party, but they don't do anything that's necessary to build one.
Would you say that Ron Paul was a vanity candidate when he was running for the Libertarian Party before he was a Republican?
And when he was running for president, yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. He switched to even though he maintained his libertarianism, he went to the Republican Party because he realized that the only place that he could be viable is in the Republican Party.
I would say that Cornel West, because he was also on the ballot, might fit the vanity candidate thing a lot more.
Easily.
Like, as far as lower level offices, just being a fellow or a holding offices in Yale and stuff, and being involved with Black Panthers, that's kind of community level, but there's nothing in between. It's like the lowest level and then highest office, nothing in between.
Exactly.
Claudia de la Cruz, though, the Communist Party one, I didn't see her as being the vanity candidate. I don't know that they're even going to put her up as the next candidate for them. She was yeah, for me that was you know,
Do you think any of the people that run in any of these third parties think they have any hope whatsoever of getting anywhere?
it
Even
doesn't
if-
always turn into, well, it was about the message.
Yeah, vanity. Because again, if it's about the
Vanity.
message, you would build on the grassroots. You know, get some people in play, and obviously you can't win everywhere with the communist message, but there's places you could win. You go to those places and you win, and then you show that all the scary stuff about your party that everyone says. Well, they went there and they didn't do, you know, they weren't eating babies and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So you know that's the way you show that you're serious. But if you don't do that, there's zero reason to give any of these people any mind.
Would you say that Bernie Sanders and AOC traveling around talking with each other, that they are vanity candidates now?
Well, no, because what they're actually trying to do is they're trying to build the Democratic brand. They're not there. What they're doing isn't about them as candidates. They're trying to build the Democratic brand.
All right, because I did just see Bernie at Coachella.
Cool. And again, Bernie ran as a Democrat because he knew running third party was
And then he switched back to being an independent when
Right.
he figured out that the fix was in. He's not going to get anywhere as a Democrat. So what message does that send? You know, if you try to do that things the way that you're saying, you're going to fail. They're going to put the fix in, you know, and
he had more of a chance as a Democrat than he had as an independent. Way more. Obviously, he didn't get
Super
there.
Tuesday fix tells me otherwise, that there was never a chance, but there's the illusion of one.
Dude, 15% of the electorate showed up in primaries, just like every time. And I'm sick and tired of hearing this bullshit. Because you just say, okay, the fix is on, right? Well, if all the people who showed up to the rally showed up for the primaries in their states, the result would have been different. I'm sorry,
Yep.
but that's a fact. 15% showed up. So if you got 30% of the popular, or 37, which typically he's running around 37% in a very divided primary, you actually get that number of people, but of not 15%, but 30 or 40%, you win, and you win commandingly in a lot of places, and then they have to take you seriously, and that didn't happen. Part of it too, and part of his mistake was he depended too much on young people, and nothing against any particular generation. Young people in general don't show up, and that's a mistake the Democrats have always made. Is that, there's going to be a youth revolution? Bullshit. There will never be a youth revolution ever.
Joe, who do you think I voted for in the primary for the Democratic Party for the office of president? Who do you think I voted for?
In what year?
This past election.
I don't know.
Okay. Best answer, because you don't. But
No, I have no clue.
it is a trick question. It is a trick question because they swapped out for Kamala 100 days out, right? It would have been Joe Biden as the presumptive, right? But usually there's other names on a ballot, right? After what happened,
not usually when there's an incumbent. Very often there isn't.
After what happened in Michigan, and a whole bunch of people not showing up to vote for him, and none of the above looked like it was going to beat him all across the U.S., they took his name off of the ballot. They took the whole voting for the office of president for primary off the Colorado ballot. So I didn't vote for anyone. I was just told who we were voting for by that party.
Yep. And again, that's the state party doing that.
Yeah. I think we might have benefited from having a more lively primary season, and he should have been primaried, as evidenced by him needing to drop out after failing horribly at that debate with President Trump.
Oh yeah. Well, and this is the thing. I mean, here's the funny part about it. The irony of the whole thing, Mike, because I agree with you there, is that the reason why we even do primaries as a regular thing is because in 1968, generally speaking, before 72, primaries were not common and when they did happen, they only happened in certain states. There was 11 states that held primaries in 1968, and because RFK was going to win, he was just steamrolling, and then he got assassinated. Now the field was open, and none of the other candidates were all that exciting, and so the convention was a fucking fiasco. Plus the fact there were people protesting the war, and of course the Democrats were in office at the time. You had Johnson as a president, so basically there was a fiasco outside the convention hall. There was a fiasco inside the convention hall, and so both parties looked at this and they're like, "Ew, we can't tolerate that because then we look bad." So then both parties went in '72 went to a 50-state primary because they wanted they wanted the convention to be a bland snooze fest that was, or everything was decided in advance, because they didn't want to have the fiasco that appeared on TV. So that's the funny part. And so now because of that goal of trying to, keep everything kind of, then basically people don't get engaged because they don't give a shit, right? What's the point? If there's not a lot of choices, or if there's not any real choices, then it's a snooze fest, right? So you don't get charged up because you already know what the answer is going to be.
Well, I point to Ron Paul and Bernie Sanders as being outsiders in their party, and then being shut out from happenings behind the scenes and rule changes to the RNC and DNC, right? I bring these up to say the way that you're saying that these third party candidates should be working within the Democratic Party, it won't work.
Well, no, what I'm saying is they should be building grassroots parties, and they don't do that.
I think the closest we've come has actually been Cenk from the Young Turks doing the whole Justice Democrats thing, because that's when I see Bernie and AOC, traveling together to speak. When I see the Band of Five, I think that's the closest that we've gotten.
Right, but the thing is, again, they're not building a third party base; they're building the Democratic base. So, the thing is that, again, I don't see. Occasionally I see third or fourth parties on the ballot, and I never hear. I don't get any literature from them. Nobody knocks on my door. Nobody calls me, and not even for local office. And the funny thing is, in local offices, a lot of local elections are actually nonpartisan, where you don't actually run as a person and thing. So it would even be easier for somebody in a party that would normally be seen as fringe to get in office, and then they could be like, well, oh, by the way, I'm actually this, and you liked me, so keep voting for me. So I'm going to move on to the next level where it is a partisan election.
I think
base.
My town's a Faulkner town. So you can't even say while you're running that you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's completely nonpartisan.
Right.
Everybody in office in my town is Republicans, but while they're running, like none of their campaign stuff, nothing is associated with a party.
Right, and so you can use those local elections to springboard to county elections, to statewide elections. That's how you build it, but it's going to take work, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years.
It takes work. It takes time. It takes commitment. The higher the office, the larger your ground game has to be, and that takes money. And the only way to get there is to have people that are willing to go out and ask for money for you.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, and again, if you can't get people to show up, in a primary in an established party, then you're definitely not doing the work to do that you could do to get it on a third party, on a third party basis, and it just doesn't happen. I would love for it to happen, but until
office on the county level here, and it's hard, and I did well, still lost.
Right, but you did better than any Democrat, person who's actually a Democrat in age.
20 years.
20 years, yeah, because you went out there and you did the work, and you made inroads. And if you had stayed in it, who knows? Eventually, you might have been able to get somewhere. But you were making inroads. You were making inroads.
Running in the next election, but they won't. The party won't support me.
Yeah.
It's strange for me to say this when the Republican Party just, won the presidency, with more votes than the Democratic Party had. But I see the Overton window moving to the right. Right? I see it moving such that even when Democrats are running for president, they will take people who 20 years ago, when I had just gotten out of the military, people that I considered like the Darth fucking Vader of the world, right? Dick Cheney. Put him on stage and say, we're now aligned with Dick fucking Cheney.
That's
No,
not what they said, Mike.
that's
And
not
I'm
what
gonna
they were
I'm gonna
saying.
challenge you on that.
Not at all what they were saying. But the whole point of that was to try to win over never Trumpers on the right to join with the left. It wasn't the left saying we're more like the right. It was the left saying to people on the right, you don't have to vote for him, is what
Right.
it was.
Okay.
Right, because if you listen to
But-
every single one of those people, Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, all of them, they would say flat out, "I disagree with Harris on most things. However, I don't want to live in an authoritarian nightmare." That's what they said. They weren't saying that. They weren't saying, "Hey, Harris is going to be like," no, that's not. None of them. They were all very clear that even though I'm a Republican and I believe in conservative principles, I think America's better off with a Democrat because this guy is so awful. That's what they all said.
So, from my perspective, the Trumpers and Trump himself fit every criteria for fascism, right?
Yeah.
Every single one. Getting up on stage with Cheney and accepting his endorsement, to me, looks like you are now tainted with at least a little bit of fascism, right? And it makes me look at the people who were on that stage with him and say, what things do they still agree on that are fascistic?
Well,
I will say that I think that doing that did more damage than it helped. So I agree with you with that. I don't see the Overton window moving because of that. I just think
I
It
think
turned
it's moving anyway, but
I think it turned a lot of people off.
right, but here's the
And
problem. though.
this is strange to say with like the Republicans having that majority win in this last election, but I think the
Republicans
the
didn't
band of
have a majority.
five, the Justice Democrats have the best chance at creating a new party by cleaving half of the Democratic Party off.
But here's
The
the
half
thing.
that will go ahead and vote to allow Trump to have his spending bill when the only power they have is to filibuster the fuck out of it, right? When they join the Republicans and just let all this shit fucking happen, those that are willing to do that need to just fucking walk over to that other fucking party.
See,
right?
here's the thing, Mike. That attitude, that basically it's purity tests, and that did more damage in the election than anything else. Because I'll tell you what, right now is that Jesus fucking Christ, man. So look what we got, right? So everyone said, well, I don't want to vote for them because they talked to a Republican. Jesus fucking Christ, the crime of the century. So now we got Trump, and we're stuck with that shit for 45 more goddamn months at least. So what did that accomplish, right? So
what
again,
did it accomplish to give up any power that they had by voting for that spending
so
bill?
and again, we're talking again about degrees, right? So we're talking about what I said about Tracy, right? So if there's bad and worse, and you're like, fuck it, let worse happen, that is fucking moronic, man. I'm sorry, but that's fucking moronic.
When it comes down to bad or worse, I'm going to vote for my interests, right? When it comes down to that. But I'm
Yep.
saying what the groundwork that's getting laid for here is a very big divide in the party, such that the best chance that America has is if the Democratic Party were to split and let everyone who voted for that spending bill just go off in the sunset. We have like 10 new people who are that swing vote that will always go with the Republicans.
No, I disagree. Splitting the party seems ridiculous. The people who voted that way, they need to be replaced. You know, there's like splitting the parties. I don't know. It's oh my god, how would I say this? Number one, Trump didn't even get 50% of the vote. So there was no majority, nothing. Like he just barely won by a fucking hair. That's number one. Number two, nobody, almost nobody in Washington has a spine or has any kind of, they're not tethered to anything. And everybody would say it about Trump, but it's true of them too. They're not tethered to any kind of political ideology that has any basis in reality. They are all windsocks. All of them. They're all political windsocks, and they'll go whichever way the wind is blowing. And what you see with people like Schumer and the people who voted for the spending bill, what you're seeing is them misreading which way the wind is going. That's what you see. They're looking at a loss that they thought for sure they were going to get. Kamala was going to win. They're looking at that loss and they're thinking, "Oh wow, the whole country is further to the right than I thought it was. So maybe I should just maybe lean this way a little bit." And that's not at all what happened. What happened was people didn't show the fuck up because they kind of felt like Kamala didn't deserve to be in the race to begin with.
Well, with them voting for that spending bill, with Schumer and those that voted with him,
Well,
they have zero political power left at all. Zero.
Yeah.
Nothing else they do matters this whole fucking year.
Technically, Michael, they didn't vote for the bill. They voted for cloture. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, and some things to be revisited that they're just going to be voted down on with simple majorities, which doesn't mean anything. But Chuck Schumer is the new Joe Manchin. These men are the new Joe Manchin Kristen Cinemas.
Oh, and I agree. I was fucking living, and I heard people come up, oh, the reason why, because Trump could have done this other thing, and I'm like, no, stop what you can when you can, and that sudden turnaround of Schumer, like, here's the thing. I said to the person that was trying to make the case, right, and they had some reason they thought it was the right thing to do. I said, well, then it was incumbent, if he thought that was the way it needed to go, it was incumbent upon him to come out and explain to those after beating the drum for 2-3 fucking weeks, to come out and say why he changed the position and not just last second, like Thursday it's bad and Friday it's good for some magical reason. That to me, that's why I wash my hands of Schumer and I want him to be primary, because I was like, that's fucking political cowardice.
Yeah. So like going back to like Hakeem Jeffries, right? His whole thing about, hey, what do you want us to do? There's something we can do. We don't have the votes and we don't have this, right? And I mean, it was so fucking frustrating. And then Cory Booker stands up for 25 hours. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, yes, okay, you don't have the votes. You can't do this. You can't do that, but you can stand up. And you can speak for 25 hours. You can handcuff yourself to a building, to the front doors. You can stand in the front of a protest and get arrested on behalf of the people that are behind you. Like, that is your job as a representative, is to put yourself in the line of fire in order to protect your people.
Right.
And most of them aren't willing to do it. They're not willing to stand up. They're not willing to go to their home districts and have the hard conversations. They're not willing to get arrested or to put themselves in harm's way. But at the same time, they want to accept that fucking paycheck. They want the paycheck. But they're not willing to do what they need to do to deserve it. And those people, they need to fucking go. And Cory Booker, he's a hero. You know, he had a little bit of a tainted reputation before, pharmaceutical stuff, and he really made up a lot of ground. He has redeemed himself.
And even there's part of, I don't know, just part of that reputation thing. Because I remember way back, people were mad because he voted against something that Bernie had put forward. But then what they missed is that then he worked with Bernie and they came up with something new, and they both voted for it. So it was like, you got to look at the whole process. But yeah, and that's the thing. And quite frankly, I think he did a good job of shaming a lot of Democrats who have been timid.
the TikTok crowd have a problem with Cory Booker because he voted to ban TikTok. And the problem with that is that it wasn't just a vote about banning TikTok. It was in the omnibus bill, right? And so he had to weigh all the other good, in that bill. And so you're going to vote against a couple things that you're actually for, right? And you're going to go vote for a couple things that you're against in an omnibus bill.
Right.
But he still gets shit for that. And every time he jumps on TikTok, they they let him hear it in the comments. But I think what he did was especially timed well for that hands-off march that happened the weekend following. I feel like it helped energize people to show up for something like that. So,
So, Peach and I, we've signed up with Indivisible. I recommend everybody watching, if you're in the U.S., to join an Indivisible group. Go to the meetings, listen to what they have to say. They're really good at focusing direct action. It's really what they're about, and they're really good at it. That's number one. Number two, I spoke. Those of you who did not know,
I saw that video.
Yeah, completely
So did your son.
unscripted.
To be fair, I heard him.
What was that?
Your son spoke too. I heard him.
You heard him? Yeah.
Yeah, we all heard him.
I spoke at a hands-off rally. Here's the thing. It was in New York State, right over the border, Warwick, New York. And a friend of mine was supposed to speak, and I was going to stand with him as moral support. And that morphed into she and I were both going to talk, which morphed into I was going to talk, and she was going to be with me for moral support. And then it turned out she went to a Morristown, New Jersey rally, and I was left alone. So,
No.
so it was all very last minute. I had Peach was just like, you just got railroaded into this, I was like, yeah, I think you're right. But I had no script. I had nothing. It was just, there's the mic. So I just kind of flew with it. I think I did okay. I was proud of it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because again, we've been doing this type of thing for ages, and I've said before, I find I don't know if you've been watching any of the videos I've done in the last few months. Every once in a while I'll do one. I live stream them now because I find that in this kind of format, I do better than scripted somehow. It makes no sense. You think with a scripted video where you can stop and think, and I don't know if it's like a sense of trying to be, achieve perfection, and then that actually caused me to be more imperfect than I already am. But
I get that because I hate scripts. I never scripted my videos. There was on rare occasions I would have maybe an outline, and I would try to follow the outline because if I did a script, it would be absolutely awful.
Yeah. Well, and I think even when I would do videos that were off the cuff that were recorded, it's weird. I tended to ramble more in those than I do when I'm streaming. I think it's the immediacy of being live. It's just like, get to the fucking point, Joe.
Could be. I've actually done that too, like rant videos where the rant would turn into a ramble. Then I would just say, screw it. I would delete it and start over because it's like I was talking about, I don't know, shoes, and suddenly I'm going on for 20 minutes about toenails.
It's like Bernard Shaw talking about a roast beef sandwich while he was reporting about the bombing in Baghdad. Well, see, the problem for me when I would do that is my first take would usually be the most passionate because it's coming right out of me. But then if I'm redoing because I fucked it up and now I got to redo it, and now it sounds scripted even if it's not, because I'm kind of like retracing what I did before and it doesn't come off natural.
Yeah.
I usually do halfway. I do an outline. I'll do 10 bullet points of something I want to make sure that I want to touch on. But if I'm reading straight from a script, y'all will know because my eyes will be right on it. I have trouble focusing sometimes,
Some people do the scripted videos really well. Like Peach, she would write a script for her videos, and she did really well. I mean, you know, all of her thoughts were so perfectly outlined, and just put out there that you knew it was a scripted video. But it also had such a good flow, right? It was just such a really good flow that it didn't matter. I can't do that
Right.
because for me it would be like,
videos.
yeah, it would be like, so today I am going to talk about whatever, and it's just, no, I can't. I can't.
I got some performative activism here that I'll be doing this summer because I have to teach master's students how to do counseling, right? When I'm in my PhD program, it's one of the things I have to do in person for period of days. But I got these pins here. You are safe with me. That one right there. So I got this is a pretty hefty, like 10-pound sack. I got 2 of these, right? For all the faculty, just to let people know, like, hey, yeah, Trump is trying to scare us out of teaching DEI, but it's not going to work. We're going to put it everywhere around our school. But also, this was pretty easy to get. I got pronoun pins. I got the she, her, the they, them, he, him. I got those, right? Sacks and sacks of them, because I don't agree with him trying to take our pronouns from our email signatures and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna pass around. Hey, here's a basket of pronoun pins if you want to stick it on your lanyard. I got a bunch of equality stickers for like water bottles, because we pass out water bottles a lot. I don't know what it is with colleges and passing out water bottles at these events.
Education is very dehydrating.
Yeah, so like when I say that I got stickers for days, like thick ass packages of stickers of all sorts of different things. Yeah, like all the different things that you can put on water bottles that are. Oh, I like this one. This one in particular. This row your vote one. Love that one. But like for me, it does start at a very ground level, right? Be the change you want to see.
Exactly. And
I want to see everybody having little bits of flair, either like on their laptop or on their water bottle or on their lanyard or pinned to them or whatnot. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That's good.
I should start putting flair on my lanyard at work.
I think the lag is a lot better than it was before, Raven.
It seems like it's a bit better. I had Chrome open. I shut that. I closed a bunch of tabs. Peach was uploading something. It's something she's been working on for work, and she's been like over a week or whatever. She's been doing it for days or whatever. And that was running on the internet in the background.
Yeah, it's probably choking you off.
So we but even still, it shouldn't have been as bad as it was. I really do think that the real issue is our internet, just the internet company. Optimum sucks.
But I mean, the fact that like I said something and you responded back to me like immediately, that says that
See, on my end, I've been doing that the whole time.
Yeah. So like I'm not. Yeah, I'm basically. It's like it's a real time conversation again, which is
it's a lot closer. Yeah.
But,
which is good because it's been a frustrating evening.
I'm expecting to have another West Coast work trip, and I want to do like I did last year. So last year I flew to San Diego, visited a friend there, went to LA, visited multiple friends, including Honest John. And then I drove to the Bay Area, saw friends in San Francisco and in Oakland. So I missed a few people. So I'm planning on doing that. If I can, I might, depending on time, I may try to go through Denver, Mike.
I will so take you out for wings.
Awesome.
It is going to be a setup though. Mano y mano. Seriously, we're gonna kill some chickens.
Cool, man.
And they're not cheap these days,
No.
right? This is my favorite pin of all of them that I bought, and I'm keeping it for me, and I'm gonna wear it, even though with me wearing it, it's gonna look real fucking funny. But
May you have the confidence of a mediocre white man. Cool. I like it.
well, I saw this, I was like, oh, this is mine. This is mine.
How are you
So,
thinking, Mike? I don't think we've ever actually been co-located ever. I don't think we've ever been in the same room. We've only ever been online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
same.
gonna be like Velcro when our chest hair latches onto each other, like when we're hugging. To get us apart, it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I'm, not too much, but I got. Although in Hawaii, I went to a luau like the first night I was there, and they did an audience participation thing, and I went up and did that. It was me and two other guys, and so they had my shirt off, and they had like the coconut bra thing and the grass skirt and all that. And now Hawaiian men have very little chest hair.
Yeah.
Yes, you live in a hot climate, right? What do you need chest hair for? And so to them, I was like, the guy was laughing. He's like, "Oh, you're so hairy," and I'm like, "I'm not that hairy," but compared to them, like they have almost nothing. So to them, I was like this like the hairy beast.
The closest we came was actually like last August or so. I was in California, and I missed you by a week.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I gotta go different places to teach. So
Yeah,
So
but
at some point, Peach and I and the kids may be swinging through your area.
okay.
Don't know when exactly, but our plan is to, I don't know if you heard about this yet, is to sell everything and to buy an RV and see the country while it still exists.
Okay.
So,
I got questions, but not for the stream. Like I'm a little secure about some of the details of my own life. Even now, even 10 years on from some of the dramas, I'm like, you know what? Not everyone needs to know exactly everything about my life.
right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
One of the presentations I just put on, I uploaded it to my channel, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to feel safe making that public for 3.5 years, probably. And people will get to see this amazing presentation on a therapy modality, but not until then, because I just don't need the public knowing every whereabouts I'm going to have.
I mean, if I were you, I'd make a new channel for it.
I thought about it, and what I want to do with my life as far as do I actually want to chase that YouTuber dream that is now more of a lottery ticket than a lottery ticket in my eyes. I use YouTube like social media, like it was originally intended.
Right.
I'll have discussions with people, but like I got too much to risk in my own life to do a lot of things that I used to do, like address people who are more than just flaggy. They're wanting to reach out and touch people in real life.
yeah.
Speaking of which, I was in. When I went to Scotland in September, and on the way back, we stayed one night in London. And unfortunately, Paul lives kind of far away now, so it wasn't really practical for him to come. But I did get to see Jacob.
I will tell you that
Paul
just visited Brian.
Yeah.
And Brian may be out of the hospital Monday,
Oh,
but
good.
it's not this weekend. but like Monday, his time is like, it's
now.
right now.
Yeah, well, it's Monday here in New Jersey too.
Yeah, but yeah, he was looking pretty bad for a second there, and Paul went and visited him, and I think Michelle's gonna plan something to go visit, and good stuff.
What happened? I didn't hear anything about Brian. What happened?
He had issues with an obstruction and got very close to dying, and had to have surgery, and yeah. So I let Paul know because Paul was the closest. So Paul went and visited him. At the same time, something that took weeks to get through customs was this painting that Paul did right here, this round one right here. And so I got that at like the same time he was visiting with Brian. But yeah, I like that we have the network of the good people. It reminds me of like the mean people suck bumper stickers, but it's more like the keep the good people around and let all the rest like find other things to do. But
Yeah.
Well, that's to me was what I always wanted out of YouTube in the first place, was that I saw a bunch of cool people that I wanted to get to know and interact with them and stuff like, and I got that, and I even though, and I never really delved into too much of the drama, so I saw all the shit heels. I just stayed away from them for the most part. In fact, the only drama I ever got into was when I tore a strip off of you, James.
Yeah. Well, I still have a comment section now where enough piss has happened in the pool that anybody who was positive in my comment section just doesn't comment. They're watching. They might comment once a year. But I get all these people that are just there to hate,
Still?
And then every once in a while, Nick Bravo loses his channel, and people will go over to my channel to leave comments about him, so that they're hoping that I will go bug him and say, "Hey, make another channel so that they can make fun of you." And yeah, that happened like 2 weeks ago. They shut down his channel. They flag his channel down, but then they want him to make another one. And when he does it on his own terms and takes his sweet ass time, they're angry that he doesn't have content to laugh at.
At this point, like the goddamn podcast, they cover him, pretty heavily at this point now. It's less Shanny and more with Nick. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I remember what really kind of, again, I didn't really engage in most of it, but there was two things that happened that really kind of made me kind of recoil from it even more than I had already. One, TJ had made a video, The Amazing Atheist, not Coxpuss, had made a video of the beautiful destruction of Steve Shives, and Steve had like 54,000 subscribers at the time. And then, of course, Steve's was not destroyed, and so every year it used to come up in my memories on my my Serious Mind Facebook page, and so every time it would come up as a memory, I'd be like, "Wow, Steve, for a destroyed channel, you're now at whatever the number was." But yeah, and I ran into like multiple channels that were out there that did a weekly like hate on Steve video, and I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" And then the other one was, oh, what the fuck was the guy's name? Jason. He was a evangelical Christian British guy, Northerner. I forget his last name. And he had interacted with me, interacted with Chris Mowdy and a few others. And he was kind of a dipshit, but whatever. But this guy had like 200 subscribers, right? 250, something like that. He had no reach whatsoever, even less than my tiny channel. And people again were making like weekly videos to attack the guy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, he's an idiot, he's a moron, but nobody fucking knows that. And you're actually giving him more
Yeah.
oxygen than one than he deserves, and two that he ever would have if you just left him the fuck alone. And what really got me is he did a video once responding to some of the people that hated on him, and it was kind of a heartbreaking video because basically apparently like an uncle of his had like abused him and pissed on him and all this, and like his voice was cracking as he was saying this, and I was just like, dude, why are we fucking pile, you know, it's really easy. Your channels with 3, 4, 5,000 and up, 10,000, 20,000 subscribers, going after some schlub, you know, with that nobody fucking knows about, and you're just like eviscerating him like that's fucking like a challenge, you know. It's like, hey, do you beat up, you know, children with special needs too? I mean, seriously, it was like that level, and it just really made me say, you just maybe just turned me off to all of that.
You reminded me that Steve Shives existed, and I just I think I enlisted 5 videos on my channel just now. Any name. I don't want to have any of my videos that are like have anyone's name in the title or talking about anyone. It's all the subject matter now for me.
Yeah.
Because anytime you do talk about anybody, you invite the flaggers, you invite all the drama. I'd rather just talk about the subjects now.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot more to lose in my real life. You know?
Yeah.
And especially I don't want to talk about people and be thought of as a rude person.
Well, you are rude. And
I am, but like I just don't want to put a proof out there.
I'm even more rude because it's 12:22 and I'm going to end the show right now.
Okay, can you give me 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, the one time when I went after you, James, the only reason why is I mean, you, James, was doing all these videos about age of consent and why, you know, it shouldn't exist and all this kind of, you know, like creepy shit. And then he said a bunch of things that were just factually incorrect. And so I corrected him on the facts. And then he was like, they made a video like, well, I don't want to really get into it now. And I went fucking batshit because I was like, you rotten motherfucker, you know, don't fucking engage in a discussion. And then when you were proven wrong, now you don't want to discuss it. Fuck you. And that was like basically the only drama video I ever did. And he was a creepy motherfucker.
He was creepy. Yeah. He's probably still creepy.
Yeah.
Because some kind of creepy just never dies. And with that, I'm going to end the show. You guys hang on. Like, we'll talk off stream. But, all right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you again. I want to try to do this more often. I know I say that every time I come on and then you don't see me for a year. But I want to try. And, yeah, and we'll see you again. All right.